My God. She's the last of her kind.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Failed Blockbusters Season 3. We're on episode 6. I'm your host, Diego Crespo. With me today is my co-host, Matt Garingo.
Yes, and we're cranking them out
We
this
are.
year.
We're more than halfway through.
We haven't had a major delay yet.
No. I took a week off in uploading, but like that just to make sure we kind of had everything in order. And we haven't fallen off track, so maybe I didn't even need to do that, you know?
Yeah. That's good. It's good to be careful.
Yeah. It gave you more time
But
to
what do
go
we have
back to
left?
listen to the other ones. Well, after today's episode, ALITA Battle Angel.
That we have announced, by the way, that like only the announced one.
Yes,
remains, so.
after today's episode for ALITA Battle Angel, directed by Robert Rodriguez, we've got fantastic. Yeah, I'm not going to say the names. We have two more. Well, actually, people know what the other two. It's Fantastic Mr. Fox and Hugo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because I forgot people voted on this. I already forgot that.
Yeah. That's what I meant.
And
so,
then
we might have some more at the very tail end.
There might be something. There might be something. We'll see.
Circumstances might dictate what they are, but
yeah,
we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
So
But yes, we are here to talk ALITA Battle Angel from 2019, which feels like a decade ago.
It feels like a lifetime ago.
I know.
What has happened to this world?
I don't know. I don't know. If they start building motorball stadiums, we know there's a fucking problem.
Motorball or rollerball? Is that's the one, right? Rollerball, James Caan.
Rollerball's the movie which I had to have influenced Motorball.
Yeah, it's shockingly similar.
Yeah. It's just this one cyborgs and it's significantly more violent.
Somehow they did that.
And I assume, based on ALITA Battle Angel's presence online, we might have some new listeners.
Yes,
today.
Hello, welcome to the show.
Welcome. And I want to get that out of the way because they might be a little annoyed to see ALITA Battle Angel listed under our series Failed Blockbusters.
Yeah, I explained it in some other episodes, but I'll explain it again here. Just because it's a failed blockbuster critically or at the box office does not mean it's a failure in our heart. And to get it out of the way, it's safe to say ALITA Battle Angel is not a failure in our hearts.
Yeah. Yes, let's not have any suspense here about this one. We are both fans of this movie.
I would say
early defenders.
Oh yeah,
as
big
well.
fans.
It wasn't like us. We didn't like come around on it later. Like I think we both saw this in theaters, and we were both immediately like, "No, good movie." Like, and also I know that the other thing is where we're calling it a failed blockbuster. I'm sure some are rushing to the comments to tell us that it might not be as failed as we thought it was based on recent news, but I think we'll talk. We know what that is in reference to, and we might talk about that at the end of the episode.
Yes.
Because ALITA's journey has certainly been an interesting one.
Yeah. So we got to talk about like 3 separate filmmakers, the history of the manga, and
a very abbreviated history, I should say. I can't give a huge history.
Yeah, but we also unfortunately have to talk about like 20th Century Fox kind of getting sucked into Disney, also because I do think that influences like the rollout for this movie, which I think was initially a disaster. Do you remember this?
Well, here's what I remember. I just remember. First of all, I remember it. The road to get this movie made took a long time, right? I've been hearing about this movie for maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
Like it felt like I knew about it when I was a literal child. I had heard that this movie was coming, and I had been waiting for it. And then it just felt like one day out of nowhere, like after like a long development, it was like, oh hey, it's coming out. Robert Rodriguez is doing it. James Cameron's producing. It's coming out next year. And it was like, whoa, wait, whoa. Like, it felt like really quick all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And then I remember the first trailer dropping. And I just remember just like it's that thing that happens sometimes. It happened with recently with the Dungeons and Dragons movie, where that first trailer dropped and you're just like, oh, this is gonna bomb. Like it just like immediately had that vibe to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like not that the movie looked bad, just that like the vibe that that trailer generated, it was like, oh, this isn't gonna hit the way you want it to,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's not gonna blow the doors off the place. And the anime eyes, as people call it, were front and center in the
Mm.
trailer, and people, let's just say, people were divided initially on it.
Yeah.
Um,
I did not
and
think it looked very good with that first trailer. I'll say that right now.
um, okay. Here's what was weird about it though is that like I didn't mind it, but I didn't want to be the guy to defend the anime eyes. Like I did because I don't know what the movie's gonna be at that point. Like I'm excited for it, but I don't know what it's gonna
Mm-hmm.
be. So it could be, and I don't want to be on the record being like, I think she looks fine.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to be that person. And everyone else, it was just like everyone was kind of like, roll up. This is the next movie to laugh at. And I think that's partly why it's developed this really strong online fan base. I think there were other people like me who were like, we have to protect this movie. Like, I felt bad that people were like ganging up on it,
Mm-hmm.
Like, because it felt like people were so immediately rejecting it,
Yeah.
right? Like, it just felt like from the get go. And I was like, no, we can't, no. Like, give it a chance, people. Like, I had no idea if it was actually going to be good, but I was like, we got to give it a little bit of a chance. Aren't we always talking about wanting Hollywood to take chances? And it looks like they're finally doing it. And now you're all being like, ooh,
Yeah.
uh, so at least that was my vibe initially. I don't remember. It ended up being like a weird, like I just remember it comes out in like February, right? Like it had like a
Yeah,
weird release.
February. But after that first trailer, they did like a live stream interview with I think Rodriguez and Rosa Salazar and John Landau.
Mm.
And I just remember it had hundreds of viewers, and I don't think those are the numbers that they wanted. Because I kind of just checked in, I was
Ah,
like 400 something or whatever, like, and maybe that number went up at some point in that live stream, but I was just like, oof, and then I moved on about my day. I was like, because I've talked about it before. I love Robert Rodriguez. I don't love everything he's done, but I love
mhm.
Rodriguez. He's essential to my DNA as like a human being and like movie lover at this point. Um, Last decade's kind of rough for him. I like the first Machete, and then I don't like anything until Alita Battle Angel.
Oh, all right, all
um,
right. I'm not sure if I'm that harsh on the guy, but he's always trying
he's
stuff,
always
right? Like
trying
even when he
stuff.
does it,
He's a fucking fast shooter. He's a fast editor. He's a fast producer. Like he can. I mean, he will never stop getting work until the day he dies because he's on time, on budget. Um, he's a director who can make decisions faster without having to fucking ruin a production day, and people seem to like to work with him. Uh, I'm
I
just
forget that he's
yeah,
done
he's done a
like
lot.
it is. Like he's done like 10 movies since Machete. Like I did not realize that
Yeah,
because I think I've only seen a handful. I'm like I saw Machete Kills, which is whatever. The Sin City sequel, which was like a huge bomb and like 10 years too
yeah.
late,
I did see
right?
that one in theaters
It was a like, why are we still
a little
doing
bit.
this,
Yeah,
right? It was a like, the time has
yeah,
passed for this.
yeah.
Alita's in the middle of that, and then he does um the weird Shark Boy and Lava Girl
We
sequel.
can be heroes. Did you?
What's that
Oh,
gonna?
you know what?
Yeah,
Not bad.
yeah.
Yeah,
I have a feeling it would be fine.
yeah.
I'm uh, uh, a somewhat a defender of Shark Boy and
Oh,
Lava
look, it
Girl.
is the extension of what he started with Spy Kids, which is, by the way,
Yeah,
a
they were.
psychotic pivot from the director who made the El Mariachi trilogy and The Faculty before
Yeah.
to do a Spy Kids trilogy.
Well, talk about like I talked about in the Mimic episode, my childhood of just watching the Sci-Fi
Mm.
Channel. Imagine being a kid going to see every Spy Kids movie in theaters, and then The Faculty is also on the Sci-Fi Channel, and realizing it's the
Yeah,
same
that's
guy
so fucking
doing
awesome.
both of them. It is great. I remember. I also remember once upon a time in Mexico being one of the first like upsetting violent movies that I saw, like where I was still kind of young
Oh,
for it,
really?
Doesn't Johnny Depp get his eyes like cut out in that
Yeah.
movie? Like I remember that being a really upsetting thing.
And then now you're like, yeah, that's
And
probably a good thing.
no. Now I'm just like with violence and stuff. Like I just it doesn't. But like back then it was like I think someone gets like hit by a car in that movie, and like I was still young enough that like that was really extreme.
Yeah.
Uh, and then like the Sin City movies come later and shit like that. Which I remember when that like first one came out, people were like we haven't seen anything like this, and it kind of had that
Hmm.
vibe. And I think mostly holds up. I'm not like a giant fan of it, but I think it holds up better than it gets credit for
Yeah, it
sometimes.
is interesting. Like it is like he's trying stuff with like the digital technology. Like he is always trying to push the medium forward.
Well, that's we'll get to that, but that's why he was picked to do this movie, obviously,
Yeah,
right?
and
Like it,
I'm just gonna say it. Probably one of the few directors who could work under Cameron and not want to kill themselves.
yeah. No, there's that angle
I
as
say that as a
well.
huge James Cameron fan. So and defender of Terminator, Dark Fate.
But was there anything else about the release that I just don't? The only other thing I remember is that um, I think the first Captain Marvel movie was coming out like right after it, right?
Yes.
That this is still in that era where a Marvel movie is just going to decimate the box office,
Yeah.
right? That like if you open in the wake of it, you better make your money quick because once the Marvel movie's out, you're done. And then those movies kind of got pitted against each other in certain
Hmm.
circles. And I remember
Yeah.
that, which I'm never a fan of. I don't like pitting movies against each other. I'm always more like let's just let's let the movies be movies. I'm much more the Barbenheimer angle of like let's try to get both of these movies to succeed if they're good,
If they're good and
obviously.
there's nothing
But
reprehensible about them. Because once in a while you see a movie coming
yeah,
out and you're like, ooh, I don't like that person in there. Oh no, don't. What are we
yeah.
doing?
I mean that's
But
Hollywood. That's
yeah,
Hollywood.
yeah.
So
But no, yeah, and I think we're both also defenders of Captain Marvel, like on the Marvel curve.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. On the Marvel grading curve, Alita eats its
oh,
lunch,
100%. Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
but I did kind of like going to Captain Marvel, which I didn't have a great reputation. I kind of went like, I don't know, I thought it was all right, but that seems to be my vibe with a lot of Marvel origin movies,
Hmm.
right? Like the first one, I'm always like, yeah, it was pretty good, and then the sequels are the one where it's like, oh wait, what the fuck are we doing
Yeah.
here?
Apologies
But
to the Marvels, which,
yeah, which is almost certainly gonna
yeah.
bomb.
Fun trailer.
Yeah, yeah,
I
I'm sure.
whatever. I'm not gonna even see it. I don't watch them anymore.
Yeah, well, we
But
don't need. This is not
no,
the Captain
no.
Marvel
Sorry,
episode.
sorry. But I think the last thing I'll just mention on that because I do think this is important because they showed the Captain Marvel trailer, which I thought also looked bad, like
Mhm.
Alita. And then when I walked out of the theater with my buddy Cameron Carpenter, friend of the show, I was like, yeah, Alita was like, you were right because he was really looking forward to it because he's also a huge Rodriguez fan. I told him you were
Mhm.
right. This was great. I loved it. I was like kind of cheering in my seat and shit with it too. That Captain Marvel trailer, oof. And then I'm like, no, guys, this is no. This is the one we like. We should like this one when I eventually watch it.
Yeah.
I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, it's. I mean, this is. I think more of the beginning of my era of trying to like be like, you know what? I'm gonna wait till the movie comes out before I get super intense about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I did really feel bad for Alita, where like people, it was like, it felt like people were ganging up on it, and then like I end up being the one to drag people to go see it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I dragged my family to go see Alita Battle Angel. Guess what? Everyone I brought with me liked it, so.
And people that discover it now
Um,
still seem to like it.
Yeah, it seems to be one where it's had this like interesting longevity where people are just like it's getting discovered by people and being like, why don't I know about this? This is way better than its
And you know why I
reputation.
think it has such a better reputation now too is that I think we're just done with that kind of to steal a phrase from my buddies over at the Action for Everyone podcast. I think we're done with the snark mind virus where every movie needs to have like
Yeah.
snarky like ironic comedy. Um the protagonist has to be joking all the time, so yeah, there has to be too many moments of levity. And like Alita is a very sincere movie.
Yeah, she's like a painfully earnest character,
Mm-hmm.
right? That there are moments in this movie that when I saw it in theaters it generated laughter,
Mm-hmm.
right? That like how sincere her character is. And I'm like, no, but that's like what's great about it. But I think you are right. I think that sort of sincerity is helping. It's like it's certainly helping the movie. And I also think that it's easier to deal with that sort of sincerity when you are watching it at home and not in a theater, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But
Although I will say, my
it can be
theater
something.
experience, it was very positive. I didn't have
No, yeah,
the snarky laughter.
no, I felt like it felt like most of the people when I saw it came out of the theater being like that was pretty good. People like seemed to like it. Some people walked out of it clearly were like that was weird, and then another group was like, was that Edward Norton? Like, those seemed to be the three vibes coming out of the movie. So, uh, but yeah, it was one, and then it quietly made it to like $400 million,
Mhm.
right? Like it kind of held in there. It was one though where it was like it for all the build up, it needed to do better. But we'll talk more about that
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk a
uh,
little bit about the
as we
movie
go.
now. Or
Well, no, I have yet to scratch the surface on my history with
oh,
Battle
okay,
Angel,
yes, yes, please do.
because I think this is really relevant because the other big name in the room here is James Cameron,
Hmm.
uh, who James Cameron, post Titanic, post King of the World. There's we talked about this on the Avatar episode of the wilderness years of James Cameron,
Yeah.
right? Of the people just being like, he's out there doing something, like, and it's like, and that is either he's going to the bottom of the ocean to visit the Titanic wreck, or he's working on these projects that no one really knows what they are. And the two that are getting floated around are Avatar, which at that point is like just a name,
Hmm.
right? I think it might have had a different name initially, and people were like, "We don't even know what it is." Like it's like it's just a name. This is working on, and the other is an adaptation of the manga Battle Angel, which has a different name in Japan. It's called uh, Gun or Gunmu or something like that. I'm apologizing for pronouncing that wrong. It's a different name. There's a lot of it comes from that era where there's just like a bunch of weird arbitrary changes in
Mm.
translation. It was one of the first like really crossover success mangas, and it was like this thing of like, what the fuck is that? And in those years where I'm waiting for like, what's James Cameron gonna do? Like, because I'm a kid discovering all his movies. I'm watching like Terminator 2 and Aliens all the time, and being like, well, when is this guy making something else? And it's like these two movies, Avatar and Alita, and I'm like, well, what which one is going to get made. And I'm like, well, at least there's like source material for Alita. Like, at least I can seek that out. So, in like around, it's got to be like the early 2000s. I go out and I'm like, I'm gonna read this. We talked about we're both the Adult Swim era of like anime,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, absolutely.
we saw the birth and rise of Toonami and like that whole era. But like it was still a very uncool thing,
Hmm.
right? And as a younger kid, I was like, I should start reading manga, and I was like looking it up like what to read, and a lot of it was like very intimidating because they're like a lot of the series were very long at the time, and have only since gotten longer. Something like One
Hmm.
Piece, And one of the things that attracted me to Alita was one, knowing that James Cameron was trying to work on an adaptation, and two, that the original run is only 9 volumes, which I'm like, that's manageable. This is an age where I am reading a ton of, American comics. I'm reading like Captain America, The Flash, and Ultimate Spider-Man, right?
No One
Like
Piece
at
yet?
this point, I am
No One
what?
Piece yet?
I only started One Piece way later, and like I've barely scratched the
Yeah, I was
surface on it.
I was my second joke was gonna be like, oh, okay, so you were either like in the 500 number issues of One Piece at that point, or like, because
Yeah,
who
yeah.
fucking knows? Good luck to that Netflix show.
And it's also an era where like there's still like heavy fan translation communities online because it's taking forever for this stuff to get over here,
Hmm.
right? And Alita had been in the United States since the 90s, I believe, that there was an original run of it. Now, I happen to time this correctly where at the time of me getting into Battle Angel, Viz Media is putting out a reprint of their translation in the early 2000s. So I'm able to get the first 3 volumes very quickly, and then suddenly there are no more volumes. And I don't totally understand. I'm too young to like understand how all that stuff works. So I have to go to like eBay and pay like twice as much as what I would normal for an old copy from the 90s. So it ended up being like this weird journey for me of like slowly getting all 9 volumes of Battle Angel Alita. And the other thing that sold me on it, and this is true, someone said like there is more in a single volume of Battle Angel than in some entire series. And I'm like, that sounds really intriguing. And that is 100% true. You could basically make 9 Alita movies if you wanted to.
Wow.
Uh,
I did
yeah,
not know
there's a lot.
this.
Yeah, it's a very dense work in my opinion. It's also a lot closer to Blade Runner. Like I think there's definitely that influence here, but it feels like a natural one of the many Japanese children of Blade Runner, which bombed here but was huge in Japan,
Hmm.
right? Like, and uh, but it is this movie. It takes it's primarily based on the first 2 volumes of Alita, with a little bit of the third volume. Those are the 3 main things. We'll talk about the adaptation in a little bit. And I will say this: this is not. There's going to be a lot of me comparing this movie to the source material, and they might sound like criticisms because this movie is very different. It is different enough that you could almost consider this an original work, frankly. It goes in a lot of different directions. Some people have described this as like the young adult version of Battle Angel Alita, which I think some people mean it as like in a negative sense. I don't. I would maybe agree with that, but not in like a negative way,
Hmm.
right? Like I think for what it is, uh, it totally works. Um, but the main difference, I don't know if you know this, Jacob, but the main difference is the manga is a hard R. It
No.
is a very violent manga. It's like I believe in the first chapter you see like a woman's entire face get destroyed with like a rocket hammer.
What?
Like, yeah, yeah.
No, I had no
Which is
idea.
that's the key difference, which was partly what was intriguing to me as a kid because like James Cameron is the king of the R-rated blockbuster,
Hmm.
right? So I'm like, oh, all right. And it feels like a big issue with trying to get this movie made was studios being like, we don't do R-rated blockbusters anymore. Even though this was in development as close to, like the Matrix sequels and stuff, right?
Yeah, that's kind of like I just want to like expand on that really quick because that's shocking. It's like you got the guy who just made Titanic. The Matrix movies are happening and they're hits. Maybe not by the end, but they're hits and we love them. It's like it's kind of teed up for the industry to be like, yeah, let's do Battle Angel, James Cameron.
Well, I think the other big thing is James Cameron was trying to crack this technology,
Hmm.
right? The technology that will eventually be used to make Avatar. And I think there is a certain that like I almost wonder if there's an alternate world where Avatar comes out, does well, makes money, but isn't like the monster hit that it
Yeah.
is. And if James Cameron was like Avatar was just like essentially a tech demo to make Battle Angel. Like it almost feels like that, right? Like you couldn't make this movie before
Yeah.
Avatar, you
Yeah.
know? And even then it took like when is Avatar's like 2009, right? Like so it still took like 10 years to actually get to
Hmm.
Alita. Uh, with this sort of digital filmmaking, with the weird like body types that all the different cyborgs have.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
that was what was intriguing about reading it again as a young adult. Just being like, how the hell are you going to do this? Like, it seems impossible when you read it. And I think that was the other thing. Some of the grotesque designs of some of the cyborgs kind of turned people off. You know, and and to me, I'm like, it's not a mistake. They're intentionally meant to look like that. Like they're and I think, some people mistake weird for bad,
Hmm.
right? And it's like, no, it's supposed to be a little weird, but hey, but yeah, the manga is a serious hard R. And the other issue with it is, and this was something I was reading about, is that the I think if even people who haven't read it, I think the main thing people know about Battle Angel Alita is the motorball stuff, like that image of her hold like in the motorball get up, like ready to like go down, like that seems to be the most popular image that is seeped into people's minds. And that arc, the motorball arc, doesn't happen until volume 3.
Ah.
And so, like I said, it's a very with such a dense story that I said, where like I said, that you could literally make an individual movie out of each volume. With it, I think it was a real challenge of how do we get to. That's basically how do we get to the fireworks factory? Like how
Mhm.
do we get to the really fun action packed arc, um, with all this other table setting we have to do. And I think that would have been a real challenge. And I think they get it. They do it pretty well for this movie. Like considering all that, I think some people. I think that's why for some people there's an unevenness to the screenplay,
Mhm.
right? Like it feels like, but why are all these things happening? And it's because it's like because they literally took 3 stories and like layered them on top of each other. Like that's why it feels this way. Um, but and then there's a lot of stuff in this that is solely added for the movie. We will get that. But yeah, it's interesting. And I've been hyped for this movie for fucking ever, and then it comes out and like people were kind of like rejecting it, so I felt like I had to defend it a little bit. And and it wasn't like a defensiveness. I genuinely liked it.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
made my top 20 of that year, if I remember correctly.
It might have made my top
It's
10. I gotta go back and check.
no, this seems like a Diego top 10.
Yeah.
Like top 20 for me, it's definitely a top 10 for Diego. Like, I just know
No.
you, and I'm not. That's not a criticism,
Yeah, yeah,
obviously,
it's fine,
but
it's fine.
it,
Yep, number 7.
it, all right, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
It beat out Once
So,
Upon a Time in Hollywood.
hey, that's a interesting
Yeah.
choice, but all right.
Sorry,
What was
Tarantino.
2019? What else came out in 2019? I don't even remember at this point.
Parasite.
Like that, it just
The
Parasite. Yes,
Irishman,
that's the big
Uncut
Parasite. Yeah,
Gems, Ad Astra, which I also loved.
yeah, that's a particularly good
Yeah,
year.
Knives Out, Us. Us should be
Mhm.
higher. I
Yes,
have Us at number 6. I feel like Us is
no,
is my number
Us
2 or 3 at least.
Us was my number
It's
one
a good
that year.
choice.
So. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm looking at it and it's like it's weird. It's also like it's all that stuff and then also like 3 movies that we do not care for were like some of the biggest
Hmm.
movies that year. Like, Joker, Endgame, and Rise of Skywalker. And it's like the memories of those movies actually coming like it's crazy that all 3 of those movies came out in the same
Yeah.
year. And like that memory of that's what those were the most hyped movies of that year it's already gone for
Yeah.
me, you
Hmm.
know. But yeah, it was a particularly strong year. That was also the Lion King year and Aladdin. Jesus Christ, feels like a totally different world at this
Everyone
point.
say thank you, Bob Iger. Those are his
Mm,
fault,
oh,
along
yeah,
with a lot of
uh,
other stuff.
yeah, Bob Iger,
You fucking
that guy.
hack.
Yeah, who now basically owns this
Yeah, I
movie.
know.
So
It fucking sucks.
uh, we'll talk more about that tool bag later.
Oh,
But
oh boy, will we.
yeah, um, but what a weird. Just feels like a different world at this point. But Alita, it does seem to be something that has lingered, which I would not have guessed when the movie came out. Right, like
Yeah.
it did feel like it was going to be like it just felt like it was going to be one of those movies where like you and I defended it and like no one else did, right?
Hmm.
And it's lingered, which has been great to see.
Yeah, like in the activity from friends section on my letterbox, like what my friends have rated it, it's like 4 stars, 4.5 stars, a couple 5 stars, some 3.5 stars, but it's a generally well received movie from at least my circles right
Mine
now.
is my circle is a little more diverse in opinion.
Mm.
It's like 3.5, 4, 4, 3.5, 4.5. That's you. 1.5, 3.5, 3, 2.5, 4, 3.5, and 3. And but what's interesting, I'll just say this that like there's a lot of threes there, right? But a
Yeah.
lot of those threes are from people who tend to be like really strict critics, you know. So like for
Hmm.
them, that's almost a rave review. Be like, oh, it's a 3-star movie, and so it's interesting. Although some people still rejected it like almost immediately.
Hmm.
Um,
It
and
happens.
Shout out to David Ehrlich,
Oh yeah,
whose
everyone's
two-star
favorite film
review was
critic.
the second highest rated. Who seems to have a problem with how the cyborgs look. Which is
Yeah.
a great takeaway to have about this movie.
Yeah.
No criticisms there at all. I'm very with the third person, Karen H, whose review is just, "I'm sorry, but hell yeah."
Yeah, that's a
Which,
good review of this movie.
yeah. Do you want to get into the movie now?
Yeah, let's fucking do it. Was there anything else I wanted to bring up? No,
Yeah.
I think.
Anything with your history with it?
Well, I
Did you
mean, I
did just one day did you just wake up and like there's anime eyes all over their Twitter feed and you're like, what is this?
no, I remember. Here, I'll get a little bit into it. I remember Battle Angel ALITA being something that was like tossed around the James Cameron circle. Like, oh, he's working on this. He's doing something called Avatar, and he's gonna make a trilogy out of that, and then a trilogy for something called Battle Angel. Okay, whatever. And I was like, didn't he already do Dark Angel? What is that? And it turns
Yeah.
out the show Dark Angel
I
was
had
his
that
attempt to
same
do ALITA on the TV show.
I had that same confusion too of like, what is Dark Angel and how does it relate? Like,
Yeah. And he kind of, I mean, when Cameron finds like a really quality like movie star, like they end up staying in the space for a while. So like that is kind of the thing that helped Jessica Alba get discovered and stuff like that. So, I have not seen Dark Angel.
Yeah, it's allegedly influenced by Battle Angel, so
Well, it's him trying to do it like on a TV budget.
yeah, but
and then just kind of remaking it in his own way when he wasn't like entirely sure he could get it made, I guess. Which is still strange, but again, I guess if it's a technology thing.
It's not credited as an adaptation though, right? Like
No, it is him just being like, let me just take my shit. Like some have said Terminator is perhaps an uncredited adaptation of other writers' works.
Harlan Ellison would have said that very vocally. To anyone who would listen, including his lawyers.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that. That's my interpretation of what Dark Angel was. And then
I should watch it because it might be a good window into what he saw in Battle Angel initially, right?
Yeah.
I feel like as Cameron has gotten older, because he does have a screenplay credit on this, so his influence definitely hangs over it. I feel like he's gotten a little more sentimental the older he's gotten, and that's not really a criticism, but I think like the Avatar movies very much wear their emotions on their sleeve, and he seems to be more earnest with it. So it would be interesting to see how he felt about it, 20 years ago versus how he felt about it in 2019, right? I also think maybe it's worth talking about Robert Rodriguez a little bit more, because it's hysterical how similar Robert Rodriguez's career is to James Cameron in terms of the technology, right?
Yeah.
Like he was pushing 3D before Cameron was. Like,
yeah.
He was
Spy Kids 3D.
He was an early advocate of digital filmmaking. It's like he does it with like all the Spy Kids movies, and then Sin City, which like people are kind of blown away by when it comes out. And then like he basically spends a decade making movies that look like they were shot in his backyard with his friends. Which isn't a criticism, but
no, but then they just happen to be released in like Cineplexes, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And I think it was a weird thing of being like, why is he doing, like, who picked Rodriguez? I think people were confused, and I think for us, who are a little more familiar with his work, we're like, no, he's the perfect choice to do something like this.
I'll be honest, I didn't see it or feel it until I saw the movie.
Okay.
I was like, I guess, for me, I just saw...
No, you hadn't read the manga. So
I hadn't read the manga.
I think that would have influenced me, like, oh, Rodriguez is totally perfect for this.
Apart from Sin City, all his, like, CG, 3D heavy stuff, there's a buoyancy to it, and that is not what the movie trailers were selling. And that's not what the movie is, even. But I underestimated how easily Rodriguez kind of shift into different filmmaking modes, which is on me. His resume speaks for itself.
Yeah.
He is clearly the guy to have done this since Cameron couldn't, because he's in Avatar land.
He literally does it From Dusk Till Dawn. Literally shifts genres in the middle of the movie, like
but even just like the technical prowess of him, like being able to like work with the actors in like tangible digital environments, not just digital environments.
This is one of the best digital films like ever, in my opinion.
It looks like it cost $500 million.
It looks so expensive. It looks like all the money's on the screen. And the action is so engaging. and it's just terrific in an era where like it's one of those where like like when you go when like we make the criticism of Avengers Endgame, the ending being like digital mush, right? Like what the
Yeah.
fuck is going on? And I think some people who like they only watch those type of movies might be confused. And I just want to be like, watch Alita. Like this is how you do that. Like
Hmm.
this is how you do that sort of big action where there's nothing real in the camera, right? Like it's all
Yeah.
digital in some shots. It's like this in Speed Racer, frankly. Like
Yeah.
where it's
Of the
like
same
this,
caliber.
yeah, and it's like this is how you do it. And it's speaking of, Bill Pope is the like cinematographer of this movie.
I know. Bill Pope, my boy, we got to
Mhm.
get you back into stuff like this. I
Yeah,
know you're
what's
struggling right now.
mhm.
I'm going to get you out of there.
Oh yeah, he did fucking Ant-Man. Jesus Christ.
I didn't want to say that stuff anymore. I don't want to rag on it too much longer. But Jesus Christ, dude. I know you got to pay bills.
Oh my
Please,
oh
blink twice if you need help.
oh my God.
Yeah.
I just discovered what one of Bill Pope's upcoming movies is.
I think I just saw it too.
It is a Jerry Seinfeld written, directed, and starring movie about Pop Tarts.
Hang on, Bill. I'm
I mean,
coming for you.
not to be that guy, but fucking let Seinfeld cook, man. Like the last time he did, he gave us B movie.
I'm just worried about Bill Pope. I don't know.
It doesn't hurt to be worried, but yeah, I don't know what's. Oh God, yeah, his last few movies are kind of like, oh dear, like this seems to be the last good Bill Pope movie, frankly.
Yeah. Well, he
Uh,
does this and The Kid Who Would Be King in early
Another
2019.
excellent looking
And
movie. Uh,
yes, yes, very good movie.
but that's also the Charlie's Angels movie that no one remembers.
Yeah.
What's the chance that
Apologies.
gets reclaimed at some point? Ah, whatever. The
I
boys,
don't know.
the boys in the band, a remake of a Friedkin film, or no, a readaptation of the same source material, which I didn't even know existed. And then it's like, yeah, Shang-Chi, Ant-Man, this Pop Tart movie, and something called Y2K, um, which looks like a disaster comedy, which that's concerning genre, but
Well,
uh, yeah. But I think Bill Pope does deserve a lot of credit. He also did the Jungle Book movie, which say what you will about the movie, but it's excellent looking
yeah.
for what it is. Maybe he's just stuck working in that like digital filmmaking arena, and like it's so hard to get the time you need to do stuff like that, right?
Hmm.
Like it's like nowadays they want everything done faster and quicker, and according to some people, they were promised that on Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then it was taken away last minute. So
Yeah.
um, that could be a
That seems to be how those productions go. But actually, this is a good segue back to Alita specifically. Because Alita got delayed. Do you
Mhm.
remember this? It was supposed to come out
Yes.
like 2018 ish
Yeah, it
or
kept
whatever.
getting delayed, and it was like it was another thing that like kind of dinged the movie, where people were like, "Oh God, they're delaying it. They know they got a turkey on their hands, right?"
Yeah, and
Like,
it really was just about getting the CG to like a place where it
yeah.
looked good and it looks fantastic.
I guess I got to give 20th Century Fox credit for like doing that because it feels like a lot of movies are just like a lot of studios are willing to just throw out the battered corpse of like a poorly digitally animated movie just into the theaters and make
Yeah, like
everyone
look,
laughs at
not
it.
to not to dunk on movies no one likes anymore, anyways, but like Thor 4 just came out last year.
Yeah,
We all know that movie's like just not finished. I
yeah.
haven't seen Ant-Man 3 and I never will, but the common remark is that like no, this looks like not done.
hmm
Like it's we're past allowing that anymore.
Bob Iger is one of the studio heads that is allegedly holding up the strike.
I can very
Can
easily.
you believe it's him, Uncle Bob, as the kids call him?
If you're a kid that calls him that, I want you to get. You know what? No, I'm not gonna say shit anymore. I want you to take a long walk, just east or west, whichever
Just walk
ocean is
into the
closest to
nearest
you.
ocean.
And just keep walking towards it. Walk until you can't walk anymore, and then walk about another 50 feet.
I
Carry
think
some rocks in your pocket.
I think anyone who calls him Uncle Bob should be forced to watch the Three Colors trilogy.
But that's good.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Get some fucking culture.
Oh, okay. I was just
Like,
gonna recommend the
I'm
Meg
trying to.
too.
I want to help them fix their brains a little bit.
Oh, okay. That's
Watch
probably
that,
better.
and
Yeah.
then the Decalogue, and then you can go back.
Oh yeah.
Well, and then try to go back to the Marvel movies after that.
You know, fuck that. Throw him in the deep end.
Yeah,
Y'all ever heard of Andrei Zawalski's Possession?
yeah. Fucking
You
sink or
guys should
swim,
watch that.
nerds.
Yeah.
Um,
If I wanted to be
I
really nice
hope
and
there's not a big
sincere,
overlap with the Alita Army and Marvel because they're not having fun if that's the case.
I don't think there is.
Yeah, I don't.
I think the Alita army has good taste. See, I'm looking out
Yes,
for you guys.
especially if they give this podcast good reviews wherever you can. Uh,
Yeah.
but
Go review
I
us
will
on
say
iTunes. 5 stars.
the I don't know what the ferventness of the Alita Army online was another thing that kind of developed a reputation at a certain point.
Yes, I think that's okay to say. I
I
don't think we're poking the hornet's nest or anything like that. Just
well,
like, look, a popular aggressive fan base, and I am on the aggressive fan base's
yeah,
side for the record.
well
But like,
that was the thing is that like for a while, like I think for like at least the first year, maybe two, maybe pandemic kind of helped make it a little more fervent. Um, anytime I posted anything about Alita, I got like three responses, right? From
yeah,
people who all have pictures of Alita in their profile picture, and also people who, when I write something, seem to think I'm being critical, even though I'm not, and coming in to like defend her. And I have to be like, no, I like the movie. And there was a like moment where I'm like, are these people real? Like, there was like a brief moment where I was
are
like,
they like
this
bots?
yeah, I'm like, are they bots? Because I don't care about anything as much as these people seem to care about Alita. It's like, I don't care about my own well being as much as these people seem to care. And then what kind of, honestly, what really broke it for me was that when we did our poll and some of the Alita army showed up, and despite both of us being like, no, like, just because it's called failed blockbuster does not mean we are critical of it. Some people still showed up thinking we were, and I saw some of the Alita army going back and forth, being like,
Yeah.
no, they're positive on the movie, and then like the other person just not getting it,
Mhm.
and being like, oh, okay, so there is a diversity of opinion among these people. That,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I was like, that's good to know. Um,
Hmm.
but so there because I know some people were essentially like, I'm watching Alita because people online won't shut the fuck up about it. And people be like, oh, it was all right. Like a lot of people walking up and be like, it was pretty good. And that seems to be the consensus. But a lot of people were essentially, like gently bullied into seeing the movie just by people not being able to shut up about it.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, hey, whatever. I'm so disconnected from fandoms is the thing. I don't know what is normal and abnormal for a fandom behavior these days.
No, I'm out of the loop. I think we've also come down from the era of like release a Snyder cut, the Star Wars sequel trilogy debates, which are still like happening. All these discussions are still happening, but
Yeah.
they just died down to such a monumental degree that we don't notice them anymore.
Yeah, and
You
I
know?
think that's the thing is they like it used to be one of those like ever present things, and it
Yeah.
could be overwhelming where like you had to be careful about what you posted because you could get like people responding.
Yeah. I
But
mean, even fucking like Marvel versus DC isn't a thing anymore. People just
yeah,
don't care.
yeah, like there seems to be like the restore the Snyderverse people still seem to be around.
Yeah. And even
But
Zack Snyder's like, I'm really happy to be doing original stuff over here,
yeah, he's like,
Netflix.
I'm making Rebel Moon. I'm having fun doing that.
Yeah. And it's like, shouldn't we want that
Yeah,
for him? I don't know.
Rebel Moon does look interesting.
It does. Please
Yeah,
call Larry Fong though.
yeah, get a cinematographer, buddy, please.
Sorry.
Like, you
Looking
know,
forward to your
you're
movies.
not the worst, but it's like you got. There's other people around, you
Yeah,
know.
it's all right. You tried it once. I didn't think it worked out. I want to see your other stuff.
We'll
He
see how
could
the
do an Alita movie.
no
No, you
offense,
don't think so?
not totally. Um, I don't know who you would get to do Alita, frankly.
Hmm.
Like if in terms of like sticking closer to the source material,
Ah.
um, but because the earnestness of Alita, like the thing about the manga is that it's like there is some like horrific grotesque imagery mixed with like some really beautiful stuff, and then like Alita just sometimes being like cute in the middle of it, right? Like it's a really weird jarring tone, and it's kind of like she's kind of like this, you know, like she's kind of this light in this like horrible, miserable world, right? Like that's
Hmm.
why she's an angel. She's a battle angel because she kind of like she descends from the heavens, and she's like got like an angelic feel and an innocence and a sense of right and wrong that are her own, but also she will fucking kick people's heads off.
Yeah. Or punch a man's eye out, as she does in this film, which is
Yeah, which
amazing.
yeah, she does a lot of that in the manga.
Yeah,
Um,
like we can talk more about the movie now. I
yeah,
will say I'm in hindsight not shocked when you explained to me right now that the manga was like a hard R.
yeah,
Because I was kind of stunned by how violent this movie was, and I saw it. I was like, oh, they're like fucking people
yeah.
up.
It was a cool like because it was the other thing. I was like, oh, it's PG-13. Is this going to be watered down? And they found a good way to like sneak in some violence,
Yeah, it's
right?
mostly cyborg violence.
Yeah, it's like that's
Mostly,
yeah.
and
Now
even then, it's
in the
not.
manga, when cyborgs get cut up, they do spurt blood and shit. So like that is the main change. That here they kind of just have like a more like oily breakup, right? Like, or sometimes there's nothing at all, like just a limb gets cut off. But the other, it's like it looks like in the manga, it looks like flesh getting ripped apart.
Jesus
So,
Christ.
yeah, yeah. The guy at the comic book shop where I bought the first 3 volumes of this was he recently, right before that, would not let me buy a copy of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the comic, because he thought it was too mature for me. And then he lets me buy like Alita Battle Angel, and it's like the first within like by like the second chapter, there's a scene of a guy ripping people's heads off and eating their brains.
Jesus Christ.
So
By the way, leave Extraordinary Gentlemen, future fail
I
blockbuster.
mean, that's not a bad choice.
Yeah.
That certainly has a history to it, a
Yeah.
fascinating one at that as well. Including being the movie that like basically broke Alan Moore.
He was like, I don't give a shit what you people touch of mine anymore. Just leave me alone. And people keep fucking asking him about it. He's like, what don't you fuckers understand?
Yeah, it's like I want nothing to do with this. Don't you
Yeah.
understand that? It's like yeah, but
I
when you
will
need it,
unleash my snake god upon you all.
yeah. I'm writing comics that I think will bring about the biblical apocalypse. Leave me alone. Like,
What a character.
he is certainly a character.
I'm still a fan. A problematic fave without being aggressively problematic. Just kind of weird.
All right, let's get into it.
Yeah, lead a battle angel. All right. So the lights come down, and immediately I am hit with some of the most this is gonna sound very strange. As Dr. Ito, played by Christoph Waltz, is scouring like this wreckage, this a junkyard basically, right?
Mhm.
And he finds Alita's severed head.
Essentially, this chunk is lifted basically directly from the manga. This is how the manga starts.
Okay, it did not take me more than like 5 seconds to realize I was watching one of my new favorite movies. Like it would have to fuck up monumentally. I was like, this. I just didn't expect like not just sincerity, but like a certain level of like
No, it's a powerful opening.
gravitas.
Like it's a simple but powerful opening, right? Like
Yeah.
I mean, it's partly why like I start reading the manga and I basically finish it like in one night because it's so gripping. Like it's incredibly simple, and it's just like here you go. This is the start. Like and visually you get the whole thing, right? Like
Yeah.
it's you get there's the movie adds the 300 years after the fall, right? Which isn't I don't believe that's in the manga.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But like the concept of the fall, I don't know if they call it that. There's all sorts of like wars that happen, but like it's over, and like yes, the city is like the last of the floating cities. But there's that, but it just kind of just starts with the junkyard. You see the junk falling, and then you see Ito going through it, and then he finds Alita's body, like the remains of it, right, and brings her
Mm-hmm.
back. Um, so that is it's extended in the manga. This is again how you could make a movie of these things, where the first volume is very much about Alita getting her first body. We in the manga he finds her and he kind of carries her around like in a backpack for a little bit because she doesn't have legs or arms, and slowly he's accumulating body parts for her. Right
Mm-hmm.
now, how he's doing so is we're getting mysterious hints of him leaving at night with a suitcase on wheels, And also there are mysterious murders of women cyborgs happening around his doctor's office, and we don't totally know what that is. We literally just see a cyborg woman smoking. There's one I remember it very vividly, where we see a cyborg woman smoking. She goes like, "Who's there? Must be nothing." And then a giant rocket hammer blows her face off. And then a hard cut to that too. "Hey, Alita, I got you new arms."
Oh no.
And she's like, "Oh, they're beautiful." Like she's so happy. And
Hmm.
we're like, "What's this Ito guy up to?" So like, there's a bit of a mystery. Again, like they layer all that on top of itself. Like that how that plays out here is a little different than the manga. Because here it's just
They,
like he brings her home. He's already got a body for her, and he just puts her in that, right?
mhm.
And that's for reasons. And the changes might irk some people. I think it works for this narrative. I'll get more into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, because like I didn't know that the separate adaptation to different volumes and that one. To me, it just flowed very well. I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is like covering like the first volume,
Yeah,
and it's like, no, it's all of them. It's the
yeah,
first third
yeah.
volumes.
First three, and then also not to skip ahead, but I assume everyone listening to this has seen the movie. But Edward Norton's character does not show up until like volume four, I believe.
Mm.
Although there are hints of him, like there are constant hints of like this mysterious figure being around. Although he's characterized very differently here. Um, but we'll
Does he
get.
also look like James Cameron?
No, yeah, he does actually look like that. Like,
Okay. Oh my God.
no,
Maybe.
he really does. Like,
That's amazing.
he really does. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But uh, I don't think he takes his glasses off in this. I don't think he can actually do that in the manga. I think those might just be his eyes. But
Oh,
I
okay.
think they wanted the dramatic it's Edward Norton moment for the end of the movie, which is for me is like Thanos showing up at the end of Avengers. Like you're like, oh shit, he's here. Like
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
fucking.
honestly, when you get that brief, like again, like as someone who had read it, like it was it's like getting deep cut biblical references when like you see his picture for the first time. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh shit, they got him in here. Like I was like genuinely excited watching it. But yeah, the relation to Alita and her body is very different in the manga and this movie. They change it. They give it a more, I think, digestible arc in this movie. Which at first on rewatch I was kind of brushing up against because I had just reread the manga. But then as it went on, I'm like, oh no, the changes they made actually fit really well. So, but yeah, he doesn't. Dr. Ito doesn't have the body initially. His name is slightly different in the movie too. It's slightly westernized. I'm trying to find his original name real quick. Sorry.
That's
Um,
fine.
he's Dyson Ito here, right?
Hmm.
That's his full name. In the manga, it's Daisuke Ito. So
Mm. Hmm.
they Americanized it a little bit because he's played amazingly by Christoph Waltz, who
Yeah.
looks terrific in that getup. Both his doctor getup and his hunter warrior getup, with just running the image of him just running around with the giant rocket hammer is just amazing.
I
Um,
mean, that's what I was really drawn to here too. Much like Speed Racer, where it's like we're adapting a manga and anime thing. We're not shying away from that. They
yeah,
carry giant hammers because that's what it would look like there.
yeah, it feels like there's something they're still trying to crack here. Like I can't think. I don't think anyone's done the like humongous sword type image. Like from Berserk, which was the other manga that was recommended to me constantly along with Alita. Another fucking one that like I definitely shouldn't have read as early as I read it, but
I
but
mean, I'm fucking sorry for bringing up another superhero thing, but Blue Beetle, they do the big sword thing. It's in the trailer.
okay.
It is very cool when the Scarab's like, "Oh, Jaime, you can craft anything you put your mind to, whatever." And then he builds like the giant fucking sword from Final Fantasy VII.
That's interesting. I have yet to.
You
I
know?
know you're a defender of it already,
I am, yeah,
and
yeah.
we're both fans of the Blue Beetle comics, so which I was also probably reading around the time I was buying up issues of Alita. So I say like getting the back issues of it because it took a few years to get all of them reprinted. It was like a multi-year process of me getting every volume of it. So and
That's
each
kind of cool.
yeah, I'm so nostalgic for it. Like it is one of those where like as much as I read stuff now that's like some of it's better, some of it's worse, and I'm so nostalgic for that time of like opening something up where you really don't know what you're about to get, right? And being so
Hmm.
excited for what's going to happen next that I just don't have that as much anymore. It's just part of growing up.
Yeah, but I mean, even like the process of trying to track all these
Oh yeah,
down,
yeah.
like I'm not advocating like, oh, we got to go back to that specifically, but I can be nostalgic for like discovering that stuff. Like when I first start reading like Spider-Man comics officially, because like I think I've talked about it before. The first like comic I got into was The Walking Dead.
Hmm.
Like when I started religiously picking those up, and then that kind of was my gateway to a lot of other stuff, including some other Robert Kirkman stuff. Shout out to Invincible. But like just having like kind of scrounge for yourself, and now you can kind of find comics anywhere online, if you're paying or otherwise. But like there's no I think the scrounging is kind of not the scavenging for these stories is not really a thing
Yeah.
anymore, and that's neither a good nor bad thing. It is just the experience. I'm also quite nostalgic
I
for
do
that.
think there's a part of our brain that likes the hunt for stuff, that likes like if it's just, if it's just like books, like the certain fun of being like going to the store and being like, is there a new issue out yet? Like if in that age before you can just look things up, and
Yeah, yeah.
remember, and like there would be that time. I mean, going back to when I was really younger and I was reading like Captain Underpants.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Shout out to our boy Captain Underpants.
Hell yeah.
But
Oh, failed blockbuster contender as well.
didn't that make money though? Didn't like wasn't that like kind of like a quiet hit? Um,
Only one way to find out.
well, anyway, I remember being on vacation with my mother once at the beach, and we were just kind of walking around the boardwalk, and we passed a bookstore, and I look in the window, and I can see that there's a new issue, that like there's a new book out in the Captain Underpants series, and just being like, oh my god, and like having to like stop everything, be like, screw this vacation, I need to get this, and getting it immediately so I can read it.
Yeah. By the way, Captain Underpants was a success. It made 125.4 million against a 38 million dollar budget. That movie for 38 million is pretty
It is
impressive.
pretty impressive. That was what the crazy thing about it was that like it looked so good for that little of a budget. So
Yeah, funny movie. Go check
yeah,
it out because
I've
I don't
never.
think we can cover it now
Yeah,
after
but
hearing that.
well, we can always do failed awards because the animation award category. But
Oh yeah, yeah. There you go.
we'll see. Also,
Yeah.
another thing to talk about with the opening is this is one of the last really good 3D movies that got released.
Yeah.
I
Oh
saw
my
this.
god, I did watch it in 3D. That's
Yeah,
fucking right.
I mean it's Cameron. He was definitely pushing it in 3D, right?
He was prepping us for Avatar 2.
Yeah, it was probably the only way you could see it at a certain point, right? That it was a 3. Because
Hmm.
I remember this being at such the tail end of 3D that like when we get to the theater and they're handing out 3D glasses, some of the people I'm with are annoyed that it's going to be a 3D movie.
Yeah.
So say what you will about that, but that's where we were at in 2019. But it is one of
Yeah.
the better looking 3D movies.
Oh, totally. Totally.
Yeah, Rodriguez knows
I
what
think,
to do with this shit. So
yeah. And credit to Bill Pope for like the lighting too,
yeah,
because like there's a lot of like night sequences in this, and it doesn't have that fucking digital sludge look when it's like underlit, and it's like the faces are blending into like the background and stuff like that. Like the midtones are all like properly calibrated and shit, and
especially when you're looking at incredibly weird looking cyborgs a lot of the time. Like
yeah, and like I don't need to say it because I think a lot of people were anticipating it to be this, and it wasn't. But this could have very easily been a disaster.
no, 100%. Like that's why it was that thing of like I felt the need to defend it because it's like it. I was like it could so easily be a disaster, but the movie's not out yet. We should give it a chance, and I felt like people weren't even giving it that chance.
And I think something that kind of maybe melted everyone's irony, poison, cynical hearts are both the character of Alita and the actress who plays her, Rosa Salazar,
Yeah,
who is
cool.
fucking phenomenal in this.
Phenomenal in this. I really hope she comes back. Shocked to find out she was in her 30s when she made this.
Yeah.
Um, Genuinely shocked because holy shit. And I think that was this is an early run at fucking Sigourney Weaver playing a child in Avatar 2. Like, I mean, this is very much a let's show what this technology can do type stuff, Because I mean,
Mhm.
she genuinely looks like a teenage girl in this. Um, for a cyborg that's 300 years old. So
Yeah.
and she gives a incredibly winning performance. I feel like I haven't seen her in much since. And
No.
it might not help that they did give her the big anime eyes, so she doesn't really look like Alita, so it didn't like help her image essentially. Uh,
Yeah.
but she is terrific in this, in a character that like a performance that you play it too strong one way or the other and it would break, you know.
Hmm.
So a good cast all around, frankly. Uh,
Yeah, the great Jennifer Connelly even pops up.
yeah, she pops up, looking offensively good.
Yeah.
It's just like, how does someone be that good looking? Uh,
Somehow the failed Blockbusters retrospective is just like, hey, remember how good Jennifer Connelly looked?
yeah, what's that about?
Because we're fucking right.
Yeah,
Like, no one's gonna
like
disagree with
it
us.
feels like no offense, like not to this movie, but it feels like Jennifer Connelly being in this movie is like a little bit of slumming it for her, you know, like
She's
it,
not playing that complicated of a
yeah.
character. Like she is, but the movie doesn't give her a lot
But it's like
to,
her, and like
to
she's like
bounce
second
around.
banana and fucking, she's the love interest in Top Gun Maverick. It's like we should be giving her better movies.
Yeah. It's
Come on,
like the one win for Top Gun Maverick is that, like, okay, it's an age appropriate love interest for Tom Cruise for the
yeah,
first time, like, ever.
mhm,
And then it's like, but the character's like, people have made a lot of funny TikToks parodying that character.
yeah.
That's what I'll say about that movie
Her
because people
character
like that
in
movie a
this,
lot.
and here's where we can get to some of the changes. An original character for the movie.
Oh, okay.
One of the
Okay.
big changes this movie makes is Alita's body, first body, is not a body that was built for Dr. Ito's daughter. That Dr. Ito does not have a daughter in the manga. Uh,
Oh, that's
that's
like a huge
Yes, it's
change.
yeah. This is where I'm saying we're like this is almost an original story at times. Now, I want to say one thing real quick though. When I'm talking about this, there are two sequel series to Battle Angel Alita: Battle Angel Alita Last Order and Battle Angel Alita the Mars Chronicles. I believe they're called. Mars Chronicles is still ongoing. Last Order finished a few years ago. I have not read either because they are sequels, but also the original 9 volumes have a very definitive ending, and the start of Last Order kind of changes that. And at the time, the reputation on it wasn't as good. It might have gotten better. I know some people that stand by it. But I was kind of like, I'm happy with the lead at 9 volumes, right? Like, I feel like I got a complete story. I don't need to read more after that. So some of these details could have been introduced in Last Order. From what I researched, the research I did, that doesn't appear to be so. But yeah, Dr. Tyson Ito did not have a daughter named Alita. Alita is named after a cat of his that died.
Oh,
That was also a boy, which is where you get into the interesting gender stuff of both the manga and the movie. Also, Alita's name is not Alita in the Japanese version. I think it's Gali maybe or something like that. I could be wrong in how I'm pronouncing that. Um, yeah, there's a lot of weird arbitrary changes between the American and also allegedly there's a new deluxe edition of Alita Battle Angel that's out. Those 9 volumes, you can buy it. It's like $100.
oh, is
The
that all?
hardcover, like the whole series. And I think they've retranslated it. And I know there's some contention in for Western audiences of how because the translation is more accurate to the Japanese version, but some people are so used to the original version that was brought over here. So I know there's some contention there.
Hmm.
So yeah, I tried my best to do research into exactly what was different. I didn't have time to go too deep into it because it would have required me to basically reread the entire series twice over. You know,
I would have waited.
no, no, it's fine. Uh,
No, I could have also read it. I just,
you should, you
just
would like.
didn't.
I really think you would like it.
I
So
think I have to now. I got to read that and Berserk.
yeah,
Berserker or Berserk?
Berserk.
Berserk. Okay, I have it written down. I fucking never mind. I
Yeah,
see what I did.
those are two big ones. You know,
Hmm.
both which have like deluxe editions out right now. I can only vouch for the original translation of Elite. I have not read the deluxe editions. So.
Okay. Hmm.
But like yeah, like the city, like Salem, which is what its name is in the Japanese manga, which it is in this movie, it is something different in the original translation for the manga for some reason. I don't really know why. Um, and there's a lot of weird, like it's just that thing that used to happen where like there was just like always weird arbitrary changes, sometimes to like
Hmm.
westernize it a little bit. But so yeah, that is a big difference.
That is. I want to say really quickly that the changes for Western audiences, because it's Rodriguez, they kind of bled over into more than just English language stuff. Because the look of this movie, I think the touchstone for cyberpunk stuff is like Akira, Blade Runner.
Yeah.
This feels like the dude who made the El Mariachi
No,
trilogy
100%. I'm
got
glad you
$500
brought
million.
that up. I'm glad you brought that up because that is definitely the vibe it has. Whereas I do think the manga has an aesthetic that hews closer to Akira and Blade Runner. You know, it's very much it's from the late '80s, early '90s, right? So like that stuff is
Mhm.
still very. There's a lot of people walking in the rain in
Yeah.
in the manga, and it does feel a lot closer to that. And Rodriguez definitely, I think, brings that sort of yes, the El Mariachi influence to this. That was hard. It was hard for me to describe initially. It's honestly, he makes the scrapyard look a lot like kind of Mexico, where you don't put that disgusting color grade over it in American movies. Like,
Yeah, I'm glad
it feels
he
like
doesn't do that.
it feels like a
That would
non-offensive
feel like
version.
a betrayal.
Yeah, it would, but like I think Rodriguez was smart enough to be like, we're gonna do that, but not with the color grade. Like, I'm not gonna make it look disgusting in that way, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no, they
let's
look like
let's
fun places you want to like kind of hang out
yeah,
in when they're like roller skating and shit or motorballing before
yeah,
they gets to the really intense stuff. You're like, yeah, I want to do that with buddies in high school.
yeah. That's like it
There's
seems like
a
a lived-in community, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, there's a
it's
sign later on, like literally, I think like the last scene when they're all like cheering on Alita. Someone has a sign that says like "Cabeza Robotica," which is just like robot head girl.
there's some interesting extra acting that I noticed uh on this rewatch where it seems like some of them did not know what they were supposed to be looking at, but
Oh,
you can't catch everything when you're filming, right?
yeah, yeah, I guess not.
But it's more just fun stuff. But like yeah, Alita gets the body real quick. She's like in her room, like checking it out. She comes down. She's like a fucking frightened little dog. Like she's like a little puppy,
Mhm.
basically, super innocent. And also, the black woman in this is not from the manga either. Um, in the manga, Ito lives with a guy named Gonzu, who's kind of like he looks like a Danny DeVito type guy, like
Mm.
or that guy who always plays Danny DeVito when you can't get Danny DeVito.
Oh,
Recall that guy. But
recall,
yeah,
recall.
don't fuck with your brain, pal.
You
But
blabbed, Quaid. You blabbed about
why do we have
Mars.
to do that every time? We did all of it.
Because Total Recall is the best Paul Verhoeven movie. That's why.
But Paul Verhoeven maybe could have done Alita.
I don't know about that. I don't know if I
I'm
want
just
him to
saying.
do this
I'm just
one.
saying the aesthetics of both RoboCop and Total Recall hew closer to the manga. Is all I'm saying,
Okay, okay. I just
including the violence. But like, yeah, he's a pervert,
no,
so like you
yeah.
wouldn't
I
watch it.
didn't want to say it, but
Like
yeah, he's a little bit of a
that is the
pervert. So I don't
big hurdle
know.
with him is that he's a big ass pervert. So
Give him the horny nun movies.
uh,
He doesn't need these.
yeah, so that would be the big hurdle. But like Gonzu and Ito kind of settle into like this cute like her two dads dynamic basically.
Oh, now I kind of wish that was in the movie.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like I get why they changed some stuff, but like here's the thing. I want to stress you're gonna hear a lot of me being like it's a lot different in the manga. That it's gonna sound like criticisms. I think the changes work for the movie. I think it makes sense that they did a lot of these changes. There's only a few that I really brush up against, but ultimately understand why they changed it.
Hmm.
Speaking of something I do brush up against, which was my biggest hurdle at the time and still kind of is the character of Hugo in the movie.
I was about to transition him too.
Yeah,
I will just say, from where you're headed, I think I like him more than you.
no.
But go
Here's
ahead.
here's the thing: if you're taking Hugo as he is in this movie, he's a perfectly fine character, right?
Hmm.
He gets the job done. It's a basically they turn it into a YA romance, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a star-crossed lovers type thing. He's immediately welcoming to Alita. He's like, oh, come on, join in on all the fun. Um, in the manga, they really sand his edges off for the movie. In the manga, he is a little more duplicitous. He's a little more arrogant. He's kind of like naive to the point of arrogance, right? Like he's not like totally vicious, but like he fancies himself as someone who's got it all together, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
he meets Alita. He doesn't show up to Volume 2, by the way. Um, he shows up in Volume 2, so he's not like immediately in her circle. And he's kind of like, "I'll show you the ropes, Alita." Like kind of like talking down to her a little bit. And like he doesn't really put together that she's a fucking violent killer like
Mm-hmm.
that can handle herself. He's kind of like, "Hey, stick with me, I got you." Also, something that they kind of gets lost in translation is they're both supposed to be a lot younger looking in the manga, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're both like Hugo's like a literal child basically in the manga. Like maybe like 12, 13.
Oh
Yeah,
shit.
yeah. They're both supposed to be kind of like that around that age.
Mm-hmm.
And also his whole thing in this, there's a scene in this where they kidnap one of the motorball players, correct, and like steal all his parts.
Yeah.
That is in the manga, but he is never morally conflicted about his actions.
Oh.
It's very different in that he's not under orders from anyone except for like he is selling these things for parts. He's selling it to Vector. Um, but he is very much a like he's offering like tune-ups to people, right? Like he'd be like, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
Cyborg, you want a tune-up?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, sure, fine." And then he incapacitates them and like steals their spines, basically. Like doesn't kill them, but takes their spines, which is like it's one of the most valuable components, right? Like, and there's
Mm-hmm.
a shortage of it, so you can sell it for huge amounts of money. There's almost a little bit of Hugo doesn't he's fully human. He doesn't really see the cyborgs as fully people, right? Like it's not overt, but there's not a part of it. He's just being like, "Hey, I'm just stealing. Like it's a part. Like I'm not doing anything evil."
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a scene of like Hugo stealing someone's spine, that guy going to Dr. Ito to get repaired, Ito being like, "Hey, look, I can repair this much, but you got to wait for a spine. They're really expensive." And then Hugo showing up to like repair his generator. And there's like a moment where there's like basically a moment where Hugo's like, "Why don't you stay for tea, Hugo?" And then he sees the guy who's there doesn't recognize him, whose spine he stole, and he's like, "Ah, no, it's better I leave." And it's a mix of like his guilt, but also his like, I don't want to get caught. Like it's more of that.
Mm-hmm.
And he does have the same dream of getting to the floating city. He's been told if he gets X number of credits, he can do this. Blah blah blah. It's very similar, but he's naive to the point of arrogance. And here's something I just am not sure of. I don't know. In my translation of the manga, I don't know how much Hugo realizes Alita is a cyborg. Um, I don't know if it's supposed to be something where he doesn't understand it fully. Because there is no big reveal. There is no like, "Oh my god, you're a cyborg," and there's also not like he's not as freaked out when his head gets attached to the cyborg body, right? But there are
Mm-hmm.
tons of moments of him being like they when they kiss, he's like, "Wow, it's weird. It's like kissing a battery." And Alita's like, "Oh, it's because there's lightning outside. Like, it's nothing. Don't worry about it." Like, I can't tell how much of it is supposed to be a secret, because
Mm-hmm.
there's no big reveal. But there's a lot of like Alita when she first meets him, like immediately hides her arms. Like she's suddenly embarrassed, and she's like, "Wait, why am I embarrassed? Like, I haven't felt ashamed about being a cyborg up to this point, but suddenly I am. Like, what am I worried about?" And so she's like she's suddenly having like all these conflicted emotions. There's also a cute moment where he's like, "I'll help you up, little lady," and like reaches out, and then because she's a cyborg, she weighs like a ton, and he just falls over. So yeah, Hugo in the here is a much more likable character, um, which
Now,
for this movie it works, but like
yeah.
I'm used to Hugo being a more like he kind of realizes the error of his ways at the last possible moment, which like makes it like the ultimate tragedy, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
he's like desperately wants to get out of the scrapyard, and Alita's being like, "Yeah, but I'm here. I love you. Like we can have this life together," and he doesn't kind of realize that until it's too late.
Yeah.
So,
He's a little bit of the Corporal Hicks from Aliens.
yes,
In that, in the movie, anyways, my interpretation of this character, who I do like, and I maybe like more than Corporal Hicks. Not that I dislike that character, just not a lot going on. He's kind of there to support Ellen Ripley, which is what you need for that movie. It's not
yeah,
a criticism, but again, out of like the amazing cast of characters in Aliens, kind of the least compelling,
Mhm.
right? Like Hudson kind of steals the show, Vasquez and shit like that. Hugo kind of fills the similar void, but then he becomes more complicated with the moral conflictions and stuff like that of what he's doing and what he's done,
Yeah.
and what he becomes and what eventually ends him. Um, I like the character. It's definitely kind of the weak point of the movie for
Mhm.
me. Not because of the romance stuff. I actually really responded to the romance stuff.
Mhm.
And again, when I saw the trailer and I'm like, oh, I could see them doing a romance thing. I was like, okay, we're coming off like a really rough stretch of YA movies. Like the last ones I really enjoyed were
Yeah.
like the Maze Runner trilogy, which Rosa Salazar is also
Yeah,
in
I
the
saw that
last two.
she's in that and one of the Divergent movies, which is crazy.
Oh, is she? I think I tapped out of that after the second one.
I have not seen either.
So
I just saw that on our Wikipedia. So
okay. So yeah, I was like, oh boy, I'm buckling up. Let's see how this goes. And then I was like, really responding to it, and to the point where I'm like, sad that he dies at the end.
okay, yeah, he's very just different. Like he like immediately invites her in, right? Like, and it's also because they're so young.
Is he more like standoffish at first?
Well,
You'd say.
in the manga, it's more like he's friendly. He's an affable like kid. Like he's a very friendly kid, right? Like he's like, oh,
Mm.
Lita, but he's kind of like it's a classic. Like he thinks he's showing her the ropes, but really she's kind of the one who's got her shit together better. But
Mm-hmm.
she's in doubt of herself at the time. It's a little bit like kind of like puppy love type stuff where she's like, well, I love Hugo, but I don't know how to say it. I've never felt these emotions before. Also, Alita's like, I'm a violent killer. I'm afraid that like, what if I hurt Hugo? Like, there's a part where she's kind of distracted one night while she's out hunting with Ito because they both become hunter killers. And this guy runs up and like stabs her, but like because of her body, like it doesn't do any damage really. And then she goes to just yank him off, and she rips his arms off. And she's like, "Oh, what if like I'm too super strong. I'm afraid of my emotions." Basically, it's classic like, are my emotions gonna bubble up and am I gonna hurt this person? You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and like there's a scene where like she like literally rips a pipe of steam open in anger, like literally blowing off steam while she's
See,
trying to.
that's like a fun visual.
It's fine. And then she's like gets all like, "Oops," and like tries to like put it back together. Um, it's really cute. There's also a really cute image. I shared it on my Twitter, of when Ito like, when Hugo tells her in the manga like, if I get X number of credits, I'll get to go to Zalem. She's like, oh, I'll help you. I'm a hunter. I'm a hunter warrior. I can help, with it. And there's a shot of her chopping someone's head off, catching it in a bag with like a little smile on her face, being like, "There's 10,000 more credits!" Like she's so happy. Like it's a really fun image. The other thing with Hugo in the manga is uh, Hugo had an older brother, a much older brother, who had the dream of flying to the floating city. He basically built a balloon. Like there's a lot more in it. Like the scrapyard in the manga is a lot more aggressively bad, right? Like it's a lot
Mm-hmm.
harsher on people. Like they're literally like, not only is like technology suppressed, not only are the resources they have sapped essentially. They're like all the like they grow food just to go up to the city. Um, they also suppress knowledge, so there's like a huge knowledge gap in the scrapyard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And uh, and so he's like, I want to float up there. I want to see what it's like. He builds a balloon, and then his wife turns him in essentially, and results in the older brother's death, and it's like very traumatizing for Hugo, right? And
Oh, okay.
so he's like, the scrapyard has taken everything from me. I need to get out of here. It becomes like his whole angle, right? And when he
Mm-hmm.
tells that story, there's a moment where like he's like really like broken up. And he's angry that the his sister-in-law turned his brother in, and Alita's like, I kind of see where she's coming from. Like she tried to live with his dream for a little bit and like realized she couldn't. Like it's like a weird, it's like kind of like a metaphor for what they're going through at the time, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
of like how do you stick with someone, especially if you think their dream is somewhat foolish, right? Which the dream is. It's something that there's an illusion that you can get up there. That's the other thing is that like there's always talk like, well, if you win the motorball game, someone gets invited up to the city. It's like in the manga there was explicitly no interaction between the scrapyard and Zalem. They are explicitly divided. Only people get exiled. Like that's about it. Like you'll get exiled, but that's it. You can't once you're out, you can't go back up. So there's that angle to it. Whereas here, it's like there is a very clear path. There's sort of like it's an illusion of progress if you live in the scrapyard, right?
Yeah, which I think is a great metaphor
Yeah, it's
for
a
this
yes.
movie, and it is also given it like a narrative engine because if this had not been allowed to have a sequel, which it looks, we're going to talk about that later, but it looks like it might. If you just have like you have this conflict without any sense of conflict, the movie doesn't work,
Yeah,
right? And like you kind of need that shift in this first narrative and perhaps the only narrative. Again, we'll see, but
I feel
like
like it.
that choice makes sense to me.
No,
At
it
least.
totally does. My thing is like as I read the manga, I was always trying to like figure out like how would you adapt this story because it is kind of unwieldy. It's very episodic. It doesn't follow like a film narrative structure, right? And
Mm-hmm.
their choice here was essentially to lay volumes 1 and 2 on top of each other and then put in a little bit of volume 3. And if I were to do it, which no one asked, but if I were to do it, you could almost start with volume 3 because 3 is where she becomes the motorball champion and she becomes it in like a way of like dealing with her grief for the death of Hugo, right? Like it that pushes her over a line. She's become like she kind of turned herself off to the world. She's left Ito. Essentially, he's been looking for her for over a month at the start of that volume. And in the meantime, she's just like kind of like she's using it to kind of avoid the real world and the pain she feels. And you could tell the first half of the story, the first 2 volumes in flashback intercut with that story, which is a lot about her finding her place, specifically in the scrapyard, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then Destry Nova, the overarching villain, kind of makes his presence known. I think in volume 4, volume 5, maybe. So you could save him for that, but with what they did here, it works totally fine. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Now, would you have her start with the berserker body?
well, that's here's the other thing. So, like I said, in the manga, he slowly builds a body for her, and it's made up of different parts of the cyborgs he has killed.
Mm-hmm.
She eventually catches on. The reveal in the manga is different, where he is hunting down. He's a hunter warrior. He's hunting down people. I think part of who he's hunting down is that there's a certain. Let me see. When cyborgs suffer from like an endorphin problem, that like their bodies stop generating endorphins over time and they kind of become addicted to it. There's a lot of talk about addiction in the movie. They go into more detail in the manga. So some of the cyborgs can kind of turn feral, and that's like who he hunts down, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's revealed like, oh no, he's actually after the killers themselves, he's not the one killing people. It's a little clumsy. The early volumes definitely have a vibe of the author was making it up as it went along.
Oh, okay.
Which is not bad. Like that's a lot of manga, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's not the Berserk has a similar thing where first volume is kind of just being um, made up.
Yeah,
Which
I
is,
mean, a lot of long form stories are.
yeah, yeah,
People might have a plan, but like generally speaking, you just kind of need something with an engine to
yeah.
get the car started.
I don't think we said his name yet. Yukito Kishiro is the author of the manga, who's stuck with it and is still working on the sequels to this day.
Oh wow,
Yeah, yeah,
good for him.
yeah, yeah. I haven't read any of the newer stuff, but it's interesting. And there's only been 2 OVAs, like so that's like in a video game that was only released in Japan. So
Mm-hmm.
has a weird history as a project. So after that, that's when they start kind of hunting down people. Gruishka, the kind of like the muscle in this movie, right? Um, he's a weird character because his name comes from one of the OVAs where his name is Grishka. It's based on a character from the manga who has a completely different name, named Makaku, I believe is his name. Different name, characterized characterized similarly in the manga and OVA, but then he's characterized very differently here. Where here he's kind of just a muscle-ish brute, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the manga, he's like this disgusting what they call like a maggot cyborg, where like the head can come off and it's like this little maggot and he can kind of insert himself into other bodies, you know?
Uh-huh.
He's this very disgusting looking creature. Um, he cuts up her body, kind of similar to what happens in the movie, right? Where the body gets all cut up.
Mm-hmm.
And after that is when, and Ito's very injured during that confrontation. And when he takes her back, he's like, okay, we'll put her. I have a berserker body. So he kind of just arbitrarily has this berserker body, where he's like, I found it in a downed spaceship a few years ago. In an odd change, I believe the spaceship in the manga is from Venus, and it's from
Oh,
Mars in this. I think Mars. I think they changed it to Mars because Mars fits more heavily into the later arcs. So I think it was just
okay.
like, let's move these things out, or maybe it's just because Mars is more recognizable. Who fucking knows?
Maybe.
He finds it. He's like, wow, it's in pristine condition. But when I was examining it, I realized it was only a body built for violence. So I didn't want to ever use it. Like he was like, it's too violent. But now that Alita's injured, I'm gonna put her body into it. I think smartly, the movie changes it to Alita finds the body, is attracted to it in specific ways, and she's the one to request being put in it, right? That
Mm-hmm.
it's her choice. It's less Ito's. So I like that change a
Yeah,
lot.
that seems like essential to that character for me.
Yes.
So I am like kind of flabbergasted that it was different in
I mean,
the
there is
original
a little
story.
bit of him knowing that she is some sort of like she has the technique, the Panzerkunst fighting technique,
Mm-hmm.
that they bring up, and that is a sign that she is more than she seems, and he kind of wants to keep her an innocent as opposed to letting her violent tendencies come out, and he's worried like attaching her body to it would do that, but then it's kind of like, okay, I'll let her do it. So it's more like, but yeah, it's his choice more in the manga as opposed to her choice. It's a smarter choice. Now to talk about motorball, when she becomes a motorball champion, she has her own individual motorball body. There's a lot of different body changing in it, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and the berserker body gets put into storage and eventually gets sold without her knowledge by her manager to keep her in the motorball thing because she wants to leave at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
And then retrieving the berserker body becomes an arc. You know, uh,
Oh, okay, okay.
there's a lot about the mind body connection in both the film and the manga, but the manga is very much about like how a different body can influence you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here there's like also I think there's a little bit of it here, but explicitly in the uh the manga, the berserker body was a male body that when attached to Alita becomes a female body. I don't remember if it was a in the manga. It might be more like it was they reprogram it to be a female body, but here it is very explicitly like her internal her mental image of herself influences the body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is another change I think really works. And I think that's also why this has been picked up as a bit of a trans narrative, right? Like the
Yeah, there was a big push for that after the release, and people were like, "Oh, laughing at the movie." It struck a chord, at least from just an outsider perspective, with trans film fans
yeah,
communities,
it
and
seems to be included among that canon these days.
yeah,
And so and it makes perfect sense. Like I think cyberpunk stories in general just have that sort of appeal. Like there's a lot of like the mind body connection that
hmm
is fascinating. As
yeah,
long
and we just don't really focus on like mind body stuff unless it's like overtly spiritual films, which are very rare unless they're very conservatively religious
yeah.
or science fiction. Now,
Mhm.
I mean, fucking we James Cameron's got a thing about that. Maybe like trans ally, hopefully,
Yeah, who
or
knows? Because
maybe he just finds it interesting and
it's
compelling and doesn't think about
it's
that way.
it's strange because I think there are changes in the movie that make it both more and less a trans narrative at some
Oh,
times. Like, but it's more just I feel like a lot of the changes were made about her finding the body, it being her choice, blah blah blah, like that stuff. It feels more like a screenwriting choice to be like she should have agency on these things, right? Like,
yeah, and then
like
that just sort of like bleeds over into like,
yes,
well,
the one thing
because
from the manga that was her choice is becoming the hunter warrior. Like she kind of does that on her own. She just goes off and signs up for it without telling Ito, and like he's kind of like annoyed at first, but then he's like, "All right, if you're gonna do this, I should help you." So,
yeah,
um, He's a lot more involved in a lot of the stuff that like Hugo tags along with in the early half of the film. Um, kind of that's him. Like he's usually with her in those scenes.
Okay, okay.
So, uh,
I guess it's to, like, kind of keep the mystery of like what's he up to,
yeah,
which
a little
again
bit.
does make sense a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And there's in the manga too. He also that dot on his forehead that means you're from Salem is there from the beginning. They just don't explain it until like the end of volume two, I think. So
Okay.
kind of becomes the reveal of like if they have that dot, it means they're from there. So
Hmm.
so then when you see
Well,
an image of Destry Nova for the first time and you see it, and you're like, oh, so he's one of those guys. So
gotcha.
yeah,
I want to say, like, I think I was really struck by like the emotional maturity of all the stuff we're just talking about when I first saw it too. Like the very idea of like Ito being the one who's like I guess generally for like a father, a surrogate father daughter
yeah,
narrative, it's like about kind of healing the father almost,
mm,
right, and like the loss of their child, and explicitly ALITA at one point is like, I'm not your daughter.
mm-hmm,
Like she has to tell him that, and I don't know, I just didn't expect those sort of conversations or this dialogue to be happening in a movie of this scale.
mm-hmm,
But it felt very like emotionally raw
yeah.
and very moving that she needs to make it clear, like, she does care about him, like that is essentially her father now, but that's she's not who he wants her to be. She has to be who she has to be,
And it feels
you
funny
know.
where it's like, um, it feels like a lot of that stuff's included more just for like screenwriting 101 conflict type stuff like
Mm-hmm.
the teenage daughter is growing up and wants to be on her own, which is like an arc you see everywhere in mainstream movies, right? It's
Yeah, yeah.
not the most uncommon. It feels like it was inserted there to make this more palatable to a general audience, but when you throw the cyberpunk stuff on top of it, it ends up making the metaphor like even bigger. And it it ends up making it, I think, more relevant to younger people today, where I feel like that sort of that relationship between our bodies and ourselves and our autonomy is a big issue for today, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
that's beyond just the whole like trans thing. It's just like I think that's a it's there's that really sappy quote that goes around every now and then, but I think there's some honesty to it where it's like for where we're at in the world right now, it's too late to explore the world, too early to explore space. So all we can really do is explore ourselves. And I think that's a lot of what I think that's some of the appeal of a story like Alita that you don't see in movies that much these days, where like they're kind of just generic stop the bad guy movies,
Mm-hmm.
especially in a superhero genre, which is what this is a little close to, where you feel like the mind body thing would be a lot heavier in them, in terms of like how you relate to your superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
It's surprising that no one has really tapped into that, except for like maybe did Blue Beetle do it at all? Because I know it's a part of the comic.
It's
Um,
a little, as the Blue Beetle defender, I will also say Jaime, fun character, slightly underwritten.
okay.
Um, uh, he kind of is along for the ride for a lot of it.
Hmm.
Um, that's the one aspect that I think needed a little work, but it works. The movie works and that character works. Just like you can feel them being like, all right, just a little more for him. Just give him, like it can't get to that next level,
Yeah.
but yeah, it maybe gets the closest to it because at least like in the early bits where it's like the for people who don't know, the Blue Beetle scarab like attaches to his body, like it's there for the rest of his life, and like they do not shy away from that. And at first, it's like ew, because like it's a huge change to your body, which is
Yeah.
generally ew in the real world too. And then it's like no, it's
I
it's
can't
it's
believe
part of them.
teenagers could relate to that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, that's a
no, no.
Spider-Man thing too, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah. Which is also why, like, in hindsight, it's kind of crazy that no one did the web's organic for
mhm,
Spider-Man.
yeah.
That was too unrealistic. Instead, he has to make his own web shooters.
I,
I
I,
don't. Oh, fucking Stan Lee and all of those guys, you kooks. I wonder what they would have thought about Alita.
um. Well, Stanley was still alive when. No, no, wait. He had just died.
Nope, nope.
I mean, the comic was out. I don't know
Oh
how
yeah,
I don't know how much Stanley actually kept up with other comics outside of just being wheeled out in front of like a fucking Marvel thing every now and then.
yeah.
Like, stay true, true believers.
Can
Um,
I go home now?
yeah, exactly. But stuff was out there. Um, but what's his name? Fucking the other guy who created Spider-Man might have hated the shit. But
Oh yeah. Oh shit. Which one was it?
I know I can't remember his name off the top of it. Steve Ditko.
Thank you. Oh,
Steve.
that was embarrassing.
Yeah.
We just lost all of our fucking cred.
Hey, whatever. I literally
Not that
was
we
just
had
thinking
any.
about him the other day, but
I was
whatever.
gonna be like Jack Kirby, you fucking. So
Yeah.
I'm not much better.
No, my mind did that too, but I was also like, that's not correct. Although technically, Jack Kirby did do a drawing of a character named Spider-Man initially, and Stan Lee didn't like it, which is why
Hmm.
he let it go. Which is
Interesting.
there's a whole story there, but oh, God damn it! Stop fucking people always calling me.
That's fine.
But all right, back to the
Yes. Back to the film. Um. Do you have anything more on Gruishka? Because I like hating this character a lot.
yeah, he's even more
He just.
disgusting in the manga. He's a fucking horrific Hellraiser looking thing in the manga. I recommend look up let's see, yeah, look up images of Makaku, which is Makaku, which is what the character's based on from Alita. You mean in the movie when he goes to the bar and he kills that little puppy?
Uh huh.
In the manga, he threatens to eat a baby,
Oh, is that
and
all?
the baby is like dangling on his disgusting snake-like tongue with his horrible teeth. And he's like, if someone is like, no one will stand up to me because I'm so freaking freakish. Um, and then they give him like a really tragic backstory at the last minute.
Oh,
There's
okay.
hints of it. There's when they drop the bar fight is similar to what happens in the manga, although it's more like we got to hunt this guy down. Is there anyone brave enough? And no one really is. Um, and then the busting through the floorboards and fighting underneath. That's straight out of the manga, basically. Uh, they
Okay.
go down there and fight. Uh, he briefly talks about he's like I was born down here. Now in the manga, it's very explicitly his mother gave birth to him and then threw him into the sewer.
Oh.
Yeah, and he was like this sewer gremlin looking type guy, and he was like I was desperate to live in the world above, and then some just like cruel guys walking by just like dumped like acid on him while he's in the sewer. They're like, hey, look at that fucking creepy thing, and they just dump shit on him. And he's a gremlin looking guy, but he's like kind of like innocent looking when it happens. He's like got like a bit of a baby face with wide eyes, and then he just like
Mhm.
disintegrates. And um, um, I'm looking at let me just read some pretty good quotes um, from the manga. Here's from like when he's telling his backstory. He's like, my mother gave birth to me in the toilet and flushed me into into this stinking pit. All I've ever known is decay. They show rooting
Jesus
up
Christ.
rats in the sewer. It's like decay and longing. How I yearn for the bustle of the city above ground. And this is the part where like some guys like dump some shit on him. And once rooted, I became like in my environment. My body began to rot alive. You get to see it. It's very and this is his dialogue as past self. I don't want to die. Will anyone know I've lived? Or must I just become mush dissolving away with no one to remember me? Someone answer me. I'm here. I'm here. Alive. Someone notice me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um.
And then
Not the vibe I got from the dude in the
yeah, yours
movie.
is just more like a big muscle jerk. Like
You know, I think I prefer that one. I don't want to think about the moral implications of rooting for his death
yeah,
now.
yeah.
So.
It's well. They kind of give you an out. First of all, Destry Nova. Like we don't get a name, but then it's like this guy showed up and like gave me a body. And was like, "Your willingness to survive. I can't save your body, but I can save your mind. So I'll give you a new body." And that's where he gets the maggot body that keeps him alive, but it like forces him to kind of like live off of the corpses of others. And when Alita goes to kill him, he's like, "No one would stand up to me until you came along." Um, He's like, yes, despise me, smash me to pieces, burn my soul to a cinder. And like as he's dying, he's like, "Ah, yes, at last my wish has come true," and then he blows up. So he wanted someone to kill him, basically. So they kind of give you an out. So
Yeah.
tragic effect. But I should say he's like significantly more disgusting in the manga. Like, wait, wait, he threatened to eat a baby. His introduction is him ripping brains out of people's bodies and eating them. Because he's addicted to the endorphin. What do you call it? Is it endorphins? What is? He's addicted to. Yeah, the endorphins in people's brains. So he's like got to eat other brains in order to stave his addiction, right? And he does cut up Alita. And I could have sworn this line wasn't in the movie because it was so dark, but it stuck out in my mind ever since I read it. But it is in the movie. There's the one line when they're fighting, and he goes, let me find it. I wrote it down. Um, let me see, just 1 second. Where did I write it? I know I wrote this shit down. Oh, here it is. Um, I'll turn you into a living pendant to adorn my chest, and then I can hear you every moment of the day pleading for mercy. That's lifted from the manga.
Yeah, that's incredibly
Yeah,
dark.
and fun thing. You get to see the image of what Alita would look like as the pendant.
Oh, okay.
Fucking Hellraiser looking shit. And again, this was given to me when I was like 12, so it was it's pretty harsh. Let's see if I can find it. The quote might be slightly different in the manga. Give me a second.
Hmm.
If I can't find it in a minute, we'll just move on. But I
Yeah, but
remember being particular.
can I say the following line that
Well,
she
yeah, where she
gives, which
says
is
"fuck your mercy."
which is one of the hardest things I've ever heard in a
Which that's
movie.
sort of like the more badass stuff that she does in this is less in the manga. Like she doesn't really
Okay.
curse like that. Not that that's really a problem, but
Yeah. Like, I mean, just for like a movie audience, maybe they need a win because she gets like fucking wrecked in that fight.
yes,
You need something to kind of alleviate people. Be like, oh, okay,
yeah.
she's gonna be okay, right? Okay, she's gonna be okay. Okay.
I mean the one that is in the comic is when what's that guy's name? The other hunter warrior, Zapan,
Hmm.
shows up and is like played by that guy who's been in a bunch of shit. uh,
Oh, fucking Ed Skrein.
yeah, and
Ed Skrein.
in the manga, he's so humiliated from getting beaten up by Alita at the bar that he's like plotting revenge. And like when he shows up to like enact it, kind of similar to this where she's like, "Hey, that Hugo boy you like, he's actually a wanted man now." He's like, "Ha ha, you'll have to kill him." He kind of shows up doing that. In the manga, he's like, "So we meet again, Alita," and she's like, "Who are you?" What do you mean you humiliated me on that night? And she's like, "Oh yeah, you might have been one of those guys." Like she doesn't even remember. She just laughs at him. So, uh, uh, here's the quote from the manga. I found it. Like this is where they go. "I want you, and what I want, I get. I'll never forget the agony of having this eye crushed, but I won't kill you. My desire, pretty thing, is to rip your limbs off while you still have life, to turn you, crying and screaming, into a living pendant which to adorn my chest. There could be no greater happiness than to hear your pleading voice every moment of every day."
Well, it doesn't seem like a nice
And
guy.
then Alita's response is, he's like, "What do you think of that?" And she's like, "Oh, so wicked, so vicious, so sad. If pain is all that you can make you feel happiness, I guess we're beyond good and evil. How pitiful." And then they fight.
All right, yeah, go Alita.
So, um, yeah, like I said, hard R, hard R.
Yeah. Yeah, not a fan of that guy. Got to be
I feel
honest.
like we brushed over Mahershala Ali as Vector.
Oh yeah, we kind of did.
Who
I don't know why. He's
Uh,
terrific.
yeah, he's terrific in this. And when does this come out in relation to? All right, Moonlight's 2016 and Green Book's the year before. It's a little weird to see him in this bit part, considering Moonlight and everything. But
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, that is. He was in Spider-Verse also right before.
yes,
It's like Green Book, Spider-Verse, then
it
Alita.
feels like maybe this was stuff he got like right after Moonlight, and then Green Book kind of just happens to happen right before this. Where he wins the Oscar for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a complicated win, but
Complicated.
but he seems to be having
I
fun.
think he's aware of the
He
complications.
seems to be having fun as like kind of a middle ground, like he's almost mustache twirling villain, but also like I'm a practical businessman type villain type guy.
Yeah, no, he's fun.
Yeah,
He's fun. He's not super gross like
yeah.
Gruishka.
Although he does take Jennifer Connelly's body apart,
Yeah, it gets gross at the
which is
end, but
honestly one of the grimmest things in this movie, and it's not like that isn't something from the manga. Although the body's getting taken apart, like does happen, like but that character doesn't exist. So
yeah, no, that was one of the things I kind of brushed up against when I first saw. I was like, that's fucking like sick.
that is
Not in a fun way.
his reveal. Like he thinks Hugo has died, but then he gets put in the cyborg body, and Hugo and Alita go to confront him, right?
Hmm.
And he's like, "Look, I can technically send you up there, but not in your body as this." And he shows him like the pots of like all the different organs and stuff. And he's like, "Yeah, once a month I have to bring a full body's worth of organs up to the city. I don't know what for. I just do what I'm told." Like it's kind of like that. Here they make him and Jennifer Connelly more directly involved with Motorball, which isn't a part of the manga. Um, Motorball kind of just comes into it later. It was they really wanted to make the Motorball thing a part of this movie. Like they
Yeah.
found as many ways as possible to integrate it. Because that
I mean, frankly, they integrated it to such a point that I can imagine George Lucas coming across this movie and being like, "God fucking damn
yeah
it," because he always wants sports in Star Wars,
yeah.
and just like I fucking flipping over a table.
This is what I wanted. God damn it!
Yeah.
If only I had listened to people. Someone probably gave him some advice, and then he was like, "No, they're called metachlorians. The sequel trilogy will be about microscopic biology."
I know, and it's like, all right, George.
All right, George.
Okay, that's what you want.
I mean, that's more interesting than like boring corporate art, but I don't know if that's exactly what anyone wants except you.
Well, maybe no one wants it, but I would have liked to have seen it.
Yeah,
And Darth Maul would have returned as the overarching villain.
oh god.
And then you're like, what?
Yeah, it's the thing.
Maybe Dave Filoni heard that, and then he was like, I know exactly what to do.
Yeah. Also, it's like, I mean, it is like kind of like iceberg shit, where it's like the tip of the George Lucas iceberg is like a bunch of great ideas, and then ignore the rest. Like,
Yeah.
but it's crazy that Casper Van Dien shows up in this for like 2 seconds.
Oh,
No
yeah.
lines.
The great Casper Van Dien.
What's he doing here?
Maybe Rodriguez just likes him.
Has he worked with Rodriguez before?
I don't think so.
It almost
But
feels like
I maybe he just likes him.
maybe he was supposed like they're gonna bring him back in the sequels, right? Like maybe
Mm-hmm.
that will be it. And then Casper Van Dien has a concerning filmography of like movies that just don't even have Wikipedia pages.
Yeah, well, hey, gotta work.
Yeah, hey, he's working. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. His daughter, or is it daughter or niece? She is in the 4th season of Stranger Things.
oh, okay, good for her.
And she is very good. She took a break from acting because people in the industry are discussing monsters, but she's very good, and if she returns to it, I think she will have hopefully a stronger
Yeah,
career.
or she just does whatever she wants with her life.
Oh yeah, well yeah, whatever. She's allowed to do what she wants.
That's a shame to hear. I
Yeah.
did not know about that.
Yeah, it was very upsetting.
Yeah, Stranger is fucking Hollywood. It's fucking this whole goddamn industry.
Yeah. Let me say, I don't know the relation of Stranger Things to that.
Yeah.
It was just something she came up and said.
Yeah,
So,
but also it is kind of this thing of like Alita is a good window into like if this technology keeps progressing in the direction it does, maybe we can like phase out child actors at some point. Like because she's very someone in their mid-30s very convincingly plays a teenage girl in this movie.
yeah.
And it's there's implications to that are more complicated, obviously, but yeah, it's the way children get treated in the industry is rough.
Yeah, yeah, or even just younger actors in general that are kind of like traversing the stuff for
Yeah.
themselves. You know, they can get
So,
lied to.
what is Jackie Earl Haley's deal?
I have no fucking
Like he,
idea, but yeah, we're talking about Gruishka, not even talking about the guy who plays him. He is a great
yeah,
actor.
and he
I
picks
don't know what the deal
strangest
is.
movies, and like he's a great actor. He picks strange movies, and will often pick like people who show up for 2 seconds in a movie. And
Hmm.
like sometimes it's like Shutter Island, right, where like that's a one scene performance, but it's like integral to that movie. Or like
Yeah.
Lincoln, he does the same. And then sometimes it's like he's a bit character in the Dark Tower movie. Like, what's he doing here? Because there was that weird like post Little Children where people are like, "Oh, Jackie Earle Haley, we've been underselling this guy for decades now. Like he's back suddenly, right? Like,
Hmm.
and he's gonna have a huge career." And then he's like Rorschach and Watchmen, and people are like, "All right, let's see where this goes." And then it feels like they never like fully cashed in on it.
No. I think the one thing that might have kind of fucked him a little bit, and I don't know how seriously this did, but Freddy Krueger and the Nightmare on Elm
Yeah,
Street remake.
allegedly.
Not his
Yeah,
fault, obviously.
well, allegedly he did not have a good time making that movie either. So
I'm not sure anyone did,
yeah,
frankly.
well, it's that
Um,
movie that almost made Rooney Mara quit acting.
yeah. It is also one of the 2000s films, or 2010, whatever. I'm going to consider it 2000s because it was produced then. It's the one that hasn't been reclaimed by anyone.
Yeah,
Like, no one is arguing, like, for the sanctity of that. Like, no, it's actually a good interpretation. Not a single person on planet Earth is arguing that. Not one
yeah.
on God's
I
internet.
think it speaks to the strength of just the Nightmare franchise.
Yeah, where everyone's like, no, I've seen fucking shooters for Freddy's Dead.
Yeah,
No one's shooting for 2010.
so
I don't get that one either, but I get it more than 2010.
and the look they gave him for Nightmare was just awful too. Like none of that movie worked. That movie, it's
No.
embarrassing almost. What happened to the person that directed that? It's like they directed music videos.
Samuel
The
Bayer.
Wikipedia page is way too long. Feels like they wrote it.
The only movie they directed was Nightmare.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense, honestly.
Yeah, they do commercials and music videos, and that's what they were doing for a minute. They were like, all right, these people cut their teeth over here. Let's give them a shot at the
Usually
movies.
those
And
guys at
sometimes
least
it worked,
turn
and
in
sometimes it didn't.
visually interesting movies.
I know, that one's just like lifeless.
It must just be I like the production of that was supposed to be a nightmare, so like
Yeah.
it's probably just that. Um,
A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Fuck you.
But Alita, he's really good in Alita, even though he's a disgusting
Even
monster
and like
man.
you wouldn't know it was him unless I told you, because
Yeah.
the amount of like digital prosthetic on him, basically.
Yeah. You know what? The voice might have given it away.
The voice might
He's
have,
got a
but
very
I
distinct
don't know
voice.
I don't know if everyone knows his voice though.
No. I would.
Yeah.
that was just for me.
No, there was a
because I'm a
moment
fan.
in this video. I'm like, is that Jackie Earle Haley? But it doesn't look like him. Like
Mm.
there was a bit of a moment like that. I know that the look of the cyborgs was something that a lot of people brushed up against.
Yeah, and I really liked it
Yeah.
because it's just like fully committed to this like vision of a dystopic future.
Yeah, it's kind of honestly, I feel similarly to when we just did Heaven's Gate, where people are like, the movie looks ugly. Like was one of the complaints levied against it, and I'm like, you
Mhm.
can say a lot about the movie, but I don't feel that. And I really just don't. I
Yeah.
feel like the cyborg people totally work. It's like I said, it's strange and different, but that doesn't mean bad.
Yeah, and there's a weight to all of the effects in this too.
Mhm.
There's a real like sense of like power behind the movements.
Yeah,
And I know Landau is very hands-on in the post-production of this and like getting all this stuff right. Again, like in between Avatar 2 and 3 productions, he's got his hands in this too. And but I want to give credit to Rodriguez, who obviously directed it, but like the way you shoot this, like you can shoot this wrong,
yeah.
and it fucks up the CG environments or the CG movements. But he did it. The action, I mean, we've kind of talked a little bit about it, but the action is like incredible on this. I always think of the shot where like Alita's jumping through Gruishka's like like fingers launching, the
and that's something
nail
from
whips or whatever.
the manga where you read it and you're like, well, you can't do that in live action, and then
It's like, yeah, you fucking
found a
can.
way to do it. Like, it's
Yeah.
incredibly solid. So, but
I mean, this is some of the best like blockbuster
no,
action of the last couple decades, or maybe ever, frankly.
yeah. Well, it's one of those where I'm like, if you're gonna do all of these digital movies, this is one of the ones to look at. Like,
Yeah.
don't look at that Marvel shit. No, look at this. I mean, like, it's a thing of like, you might not like the Snyder movies, but they are worth studying some of the effect shots in it to see how he does that stuff. So,
oh, 100%. Yeah.
It's more dynamic visually than a lot of the more mainstream things. So, what else do we have? It is kind of Jeff Fahey's in this.
Yeah, my boy. Oh, Lapidus from Lost.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of people in this. Show
Yeah.
like half a second. Michelle Rodriguez uncredited cameo. On with Jai Courtney.
Jai Courtney. What was there was a Jai Courtney movement for a second.
What was there?
Well, like I think it sort of started like ironically because Jai Courtney was one of those guys Hollywood was like, this is your guy,
and everyone
it's
like no.
Yeah, but then it turns out he's a pretty good actor. Just like stop doing that, to people. It's not fair to them too. But I think it sort of started like ironically where it was like, oh, like Jai Courtney, like heartthrob, whatever, and it's like, well, he's not like an ugly guy, and then you start seeing him in other stuff, and it's like, yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah, he had
just,
the misfortune. Yeah. He kind of picked every wrong movie for a little bit. Where it's just like he does like Good Day to Die Hard, the Die Hard movie that no one defends.
I know, it's tough.
Terminator Genesis.
There's no hope.
Terminator movie no one defends.
I've seen defenses. I am not of that ilk. But I want to make that clear.
I feel like if there's enough of them, it would rise to the surface, right? Like,
yeah, you're right.
I see defenses of Salvation. I do not see defenses of Genesis.
Yeah,
Suicide Squad, which is kind of like it almost tanks everyone's careers.
I know, and then he's in the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, he gets killed, and then.
I know. At first, I was like, "Oh, nice to see Jai Courtney's back." Oh,
well, interesting choices in that movie. I guess he was back for The Flash.
Oh, okay.
So good for him, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's got a few movies I've never even heard of. But hopefully finds out because he's not bad. But
no.
But hey.
Yeah, but yeah, interesting people in this movie. People I all generally like. Derek, I gotta shout out Derek Mears. Do you know who Derek Mears is?
Not sure. Oh yes, I know who that is. He shows up for like 2 seconds.
Yeah,
right. Like.
Yeah. Again, literally like a bit part at best. But
he's one of those
like a stunt movie legend.
Yeah, he's one of those guys where you've seen him before, right? Where you're like, oh, it's that.
Yeah. He played Jason Voorhees in the 2009 Friday the 13th, which I like so much more than the Nightmare reboot.
That was one where those two kind of got lumped together, and like in the decades since, people are like, no, the Friday the 13th is way better than the Nightmare remake. So
yeah. He also played. I want to shout this out because I never gave the show a chance, and I know it was like a passion project for James Wan, ended up not panning out, but he played Swamp Thing in that Swamp Thing show.
How did the Swamp Thing not work? Like.
Because they tried to make the DC Universe streaming service, and they're like, "Here's no money."
Yeah,
it's like the only thing that's lasted from there is the Harley Quinn show.
Yeah, what fucking people are so dumb.
I know, so fucking
people
stupid.
So dumb, man.
Just the stupidest motherfuckers running this shit.
Yeah, we'll get to more.
Anyways, I'm a Derek Mears fan. That's what I wanted to say.
Shout out to Derek Mears. Sorry you have to deal with so many stupid motherfuckers.
I know.
We can't even be nice to people on this show without finding someone to get angry at.
I know. He could be Jason again in the Brian Fuller Crystal Lake show.
Yeah. If that even happens.
Yeah. Now who knows whatever's going to happen, but
just not happen for some reason. But
and especially now with the strike, I don't know. But I heard some crazy shit about it.
All right.
It sounds very good. But
I feel like
anyways,
I
yeah.
didn't give enough credit to Christoph Waltz as Dr. Dyson, who I feel like he's gained the reputation of he only works if he's working with Tarantino, which I just don't agree with.
I don't
He's
either.
very good here.
He has been miscast.
Yes,
That is 100%
there's been
true.
huge miscasting mistakes
Yeah.
in terms of how he's used, and it was a it did feel like people just didn't know what to do with him for a while.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. But I mean, like, even with that in mind, I want to say, like, I'm kind of okay with that sometimes. Because it's like, when Tarantino, he didn't discover him, but when he kind of shot him up into superstardom, everyone wanted to work with him
yeah,
because they're like, who the fuck is this guy?
Mhm.
And it's like, look, if misfires happen, that's fine. It's really cool to see someone kind of join the acting game late in
yeah,
their careers and become like well known and well liked, like almost universally.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, this follow up to like Inglourious Basterds was like the Green Hornet, like,
Oh yeah,
which he's
yeah.
actually fun in. Like that movie.
He is fun in that
Movie's got a
movie.
bunch of things stacked together. And I will say this: I think he's great as Blofeld in the two Bond movies he was in. Like,
I do
I
too.
don't think he got enough credit for like being able to do Blofeld like engagingly. So,
Yeah,
but here he's
yeah.
like, but also this
Defender.
is a movie where you get a weird window into like just like he is a strange performer where he just doesn't give you what you'd expect. Where
Mm-hmm.
like he describes like the death of his daughter fairly nonchalantly, but in a way that like you can feel the pain in him when it happens.
Yeah.
Like he's like it's almost like he's sick of telling the story at this point.
Yeah,
Like
it's like he has to say it like that because if he expresses any more, it's gonna like
yeah,
he'll shatter.
and it feels like other actors would make a bigger meal out of that stuff. And then the stuff he does decide to make a meal out of, you wouldn't expect, but it makes it more fun, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
uh, so. Yeah, this movie's just a blast. And
Yeah, I guess we could just kind of wrap up like with the ending then. So the rollerball action
yeah, we
happens,
get
which is like, I mean, honestly, the action in this kind of keeps escalating
yeah,
to such a point that I don't really mind that Gruishka and Alita don't have like some epic final culmination. It's kind of just like, yeah, I'm just got to deal with this. I'm focused on other shit now. Like we're coming down from the
well,
movie.
you get like kind of multiple simultaneous climaxes, right? Like where you get like Motorball and
Mm-hmm.
then Grishka, and then like you get the stuff with fucking Vector, and then you get Hugo's death, which is like the real end of the movie. So
Mm-hmm.
um, and it is an escalating thing. It really feels like they were saving it all for the Motorball thing, which totally does deliver. I'm a little upset though that just because of the way this movie is, it's like not the worst thing. But I would have loved to have seen just a full game of Motorball at one point, uh,
Uh-huh.
and just to see what it like the more they try their damnedest, right? Like I honestly get it where there's like the skirmish, right, where like it's just the kids in the street playing a version of Motorball, and then like we get
Mm-hmm.
glimpses of a few games, but then like the actual game that she gets in is more about her just surviving it because it's a trap. Um, so which I don't believe happens in the manga.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a like someone putting a bounty on her, kind of being like, if you take her out like during this race, we'll be grateful. But it still is part of a race they have to win. So
Yeah.
but also like I'm the
Yeah.
one person who's like, I know some people complain about the length of the pod racing thing, and I'm not that person, at least not these days.
Yeah, no, the length is not the problem. As the defender of the prequels in this podcast, I just think it's kind of shot kind of
Mhm.
boringly, but whatever. Um, but to your point about like just want to see a normal motorball game, I'm kind of with you. But to talk about my own writing for a bit, I was writing something with Gene a while back, which I still want to go back to, and he gave me his blessing. I think he's good without it. But um, there was this setup in the beginning of this script. It's like a zombie horror thing, and I wanted to counteract like or juxtapose a normal day versus a day after the inciting incident.
Mhm.
And I kept trying to trim it down, trying to trim it down, trying to trim it down. And then Gene wisely was just like, why not just put the inciting incident in the middle of that first day? Like, why you don't have to do both. You could just show like quickly, like you think it's going to be normal and you kind of set the audience up for that. And then you pay it off with like, but we're not going to get to experience normality,
And
you know?
and with my complaints here, it does feel like the setup for if they get a sequel will be more Motorball heavy, right?
Yeah.
But
Maybe that's the opening.
maybe it's interesting to think of what they could do with it. Uh, for a movie that I think does stuff very well visually, I think the one thing that feels a little clumsy, where like even watching it the first time where I was in theaters, I was confused, and if I was confused, everyone else was the Edward Norton's ability to take over people's bodies, which
Oh,
I felt
really?
like the first time it happens, it's a little clumsy. Like they
Hmm.
kind of sell it in the end when he takes over Vector and he has the blue eyes, right? Like that's
Yeah.
what really works. But when he first takes over Grishka's body, it's like, wait, what the hell is happening? Because I don't think Grishka has been well enough defined at that point that
Hmm.
you understand that he's acting abnormally, correct? Um,
I didn't have that problem. Is that
I don't
strange?
know. No, I'm just saying, like, that's the only one where, like, even on rewatch, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot this happens. I remembered it happening with Vector when he dies, which is actually a really good moment where he's like, oh, that seems fatal, like,
Yeah.
which is a pretty fun moment. I remembered that, but I did not remember it happening earlier, you know.
Hmm.
And on rewatch, I was like I'm watching the scene, and it like took me a minute to be like, oh yeah, that's what's happening here. So even on rewatch, it kind of threw me a little. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but
Um,
yeah.
yeah, the Hugo death is really tragic. We shout out every other actor in this fucking movie. Shout out to Kean
Mhm.
Johnson, who was only like
Yeah.
18 when he did
Well, that's the
this or
crazy thing is
whatever.
that like he's genuinely 18, and then she's like in her mid 30s playing 18, right? Like
Yeah.
it's kind of wild. And like
Yeah.
like I said, I didn't notice it so much that like when I finally looked her up and was like, I was shocked to discover that she was 38. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
but not a criticism. It's just like a surprise, and hopefully
Hmm.
she's down to do another one of these. Uh,
Oh, she said she's out. She's ready.
yeah.
She's ready. She's out there just waiting, just gunning.
We get the motorball.
Um.
We get Hugo's death. In the comic, it's slightly different. Where like the revelation that Vector was lying to him, um, it it kind of breaks his mind a little bit. Like he kind of goes full Joker. Like he starts like
Mm.
laughing, and he throws himself out a window. You think he's died, but then you find out that he's like trying to climb one of the tubes leading up
Mm.
to the city. And also, I gotta give a shout out to the little pod guys that pop up. The little head that like pops up when she signs up to be a hunter warrior,
Oh yeah,
called
yeah.
Deckmen. They're all over the manga. They're in this they're more creepy looking. They're definitely they only have the element of creepiness in the manga, but they're also kind of funny and goofy looking. There's an image of one like where he's like out on the street being like, "Hey, you're not allowed to climb these things," and it's raining, so he's holding a little umbrella over himself. Like,
Mm.
and the Deckmen are made from if you are unhappy with your life. They explain this in one of the like appendices. So if you're unhappy with your life, sign up to be a Deckman. They'll cut your brain out and put you in one. Like it's live the good life in the off-world colonies. Like,
Oh, a chance to live
I mean,
again.
a lot of the stuff with like the Mars stuff and the Venus stuff does feel a little bit like Blade Runner off-world colony type shit, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Hugo, he like climbs it in the mug. He's climbing the thing, and he's able to dodge the spike thing a few times. Like one of the deckmen, you're like, wow, he's dodged it 6 times, a new record. Like his deckmen, they have no concept of what he's doing is like endangering his life. And Alita confronts him,
Mm.
does that whole thing of being like, why don't you just come with me? And like it's that moment where like his realization of like, oh yes, Alita loves me. I could stay with her. This could actually, instead of my dream is dead, this thing I always want to live, but like that doesn't mean my life is over. And like that realization is what distracts him for long enough to allow the spikes to come and kind of finally get him.
Mm.
So in peak tragedy, and,
Yeah.
and then he falls, and then I think his last words of the manga is like, "At least I got to say goodbye," and then he dies.
Aw.
Yeah. So and then that kind of breaks Alita, and she goes from being the more like kind-hearted Alita that we know to the more cold and like she's just like I'm never gonna feel anything again. I'm gonna get all my aggression out just playing motorball 24/7. And
I'm sure that's super healthy.
yes, but then like the fun arcs that come later are like her trying to learn to get her humanity back and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. I figured that was the arc of that trajectory, but that I got to read these. That's what I got to do.
Yeah.
Because I don't know when the sequel's happening, but apparently it is happening.
Yeah, well, that
now.
was the crazy thing is that there's been there was some buzz for a while, but it was kind of like, and then with 20th Century Fox getting bought by Disney, it became even more like perilous, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
this is technically the last release 21st Century Fox did before the
Wow.
acquisition, so a hell of a note to go out on for a studio with a tremendous legacy. Um, and yeah, there's been some talk that it might happen, and also because the reason this movie gets made is because James Cameron's like, I want to finally produce Battle Angel, and they're like, well, we don't know about this material, and then he's like, hey, how much did Avatar make? Yeah, we're doing Battle Angel. Like, that's what he did, and now it's almost certainly, oh, hey, remember how everyone said lightning wasn't gonna strike twice with Avatar 2? Guess what? It did. So he's doing Battle Angel 2. Like it feels like that, but allegedly one of the holdups is Disney wants James Cameron to direct it instead of Robert
Mm-hmm.
Rodriguez, and by Disney,
Yeah.
Bob Iger. And,
Yeah. So once Iger's out, we'll get this made.
fuck that. Like, so who knows how they'll pay? Like, here's the thing. I'm not gonna be upset if James Cameron suddenly gets slotted into the director's position because James Cameron is a very competent director, you know. But the idea that
Mm-hmm.
Rodriguez even needs to be replaced is bullshit. Like,
It is.
it's one thing to be like, we're getting rid of Rodriguez and we're bringing in the Russos. Like, if that was what was happening, I would be furious. But
Yeah.
it's like, what the fuck? That
No.
shouldn't be your hold.
No, it's
like,
no. And just some more like contextual stuff for that. Because Cameron does want to do one more movie between the Avatar sequels, between 3 and 4 specifically. One of them is his own Hiroshima movie, I believe. Or what is that one? I can't remember.
It's like
what
the
fucking
last
movie it is.
train to Hiroshima or something like that. It's been one of those projects
Yes.
he's been talking about forever now. So
Yeah, and now he has like carte blanche, basically. So there's that. Rodriguez was even like touting, like I basically did Book of Boba Fett to try to get people like to give me ALITA because Disney has ALITA.
yeah,
And that didn't. You and I were fine with that series, mostly. Like we're not going to defend it, but we're just like
there's a bit of a step up in the filmmaking, I will say.
from maybe the Jon Favreau.
Yeah, maybe Jon
things.
Favreau, who is a competent filmmaker, but
and maybe turned into a bit of a disappointment. But yeah, so he was even touting that series kind of. I think that was the first like whiff for a lot of people, and I'm like, really, that was the first? Okay. I don't know if that's gonna pan out. Landau still, as recently as this year, was like, "Yep, we're definitely developing it." In the press run up for Avatar 2, because I was just watching every James Cameron interview or listening to every James Cameron interview. Rodriguez and Cameron did that director on director discussion, and they end it with Cameron going, "Hey, let's do another ALITA movie. Yeah, let's make a pact right here, right now." And they're like, "Yeah, Blood Pact," and I was like, "All right, the boys are at it.
They're bringing it back."
Yeah, no, so they are fucking at. They both want to do it,
Yeah.
and again, they seem like good buds.
So this could be, have we had a field blockbuster that spawned a sequel yet? That was like,
nope.
it looked like it was dead, but then it's coming back. So
This is the first. There's a first for everything.
Resurrected much in the same way ALITA was.
Yes, resurrected Blockbusters.
No, because then we'll just be talking about soft reboot bullshit.
I know. Then we have to talk about Pacific Rim Uprising.
Yeah. I guess you know what.
And I'll never do that again.
We've touted Pacific Rim, another movie similarly in this vein, where like we all kind of rolled up to be like, we have to save this movie because it's got and then got a sequel, and then the sequel was just terrible because they got rid of the director who actually knew what they were doing.
I know.
So would not be shocked if the same thing could happen, but thankfully Cameron kind of has his weight to throw around. If he's very much like, Rodriguez is doing it, I'm doing it with Rodriguez, then it will definitely happen. But it looks like someone sued the movie at one point over the name Battle Angel, which is interesting. That might be why it's called ALITA Battle Angel instead of Battle Angel ALITA.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah. Although that does feel like a studio note to be like old
Uh-huh.
ALITA because she's the main character. And Battle Angel ALITA,
Yeah.
that title's too clunky. Like, whereas I think when Cameron was developing it, it was just going to be called Battle Angel. So, and all the
And yeah,
titles
that's what we kind
have
of knew it by,
like
you know.
angel quotes. Like it's 2 volumes I have here, first two. It's Tears of an Angel and Rusty Angel are the the subtitles for each volume. So
Mm. Yeah. I remember Cameron or Landau was saying like, yeah, and then the sequels would be like Avenging Angel,
that makes sense.
and then
I know that some of them are like that. Like there's like
mhm,
Avenging Angel, there's
or
Ascending. I think the last one is Ascending Angel or something like that.
hmm.
Um,
There's also Fallen Angel. I
yes,
think there's one he
they
said,
get
but
they
yeah.
get
So
increasingly weirder, and I'd be interested to see if they're gonna stick to the original continuity or if they're gonna go with like where Last Order goes because it feels like a lot of the hints. Because I know that Last Order is a lot more about the other planets out there. Uh, yeah,
oh, okay.
and in our solar system, obviously, we get a brief glimpse of the Moon War in this movie.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk
Yeah,
about that. That's how fucking packed this
yeah,
movie
yeah.
is.
There's a lot. Again, it's a and like the manga is similarly very dense, so it's like incredible this
Yeah.
thing even works.
Yeah.
And
And honestly, even if we didn't get a sequel, like we still might not, you know, at the end of the day, we don't know, especially right now, considering where the industry's
yeah,
at. Like, I am glad I have this movie, not just because it works, but it's like there's so much to just fucking like live with here
yeah.
already.
And I think, and also like again, if for whatever, if as much as I would love a sequel, if we don't get it, the manga's out there. You can seek it out. It's 100% worth reading. It's a really it's one of those where like it's a very inspiring read in terms of just like its themes, but also just like its creativity. I highly recommend it, both it and the movie. So, and I am assuming this opened Alita up to a whole new world of people because it does have the fervent defenders out there who, to this
Yeah,
day, are
definitely
championing.
opened it up to me.
What was that?
It definitely opened it up for me.
Yep. And there's still people championing it, and they seem excited. And they will probably be the happiest if a sequel does get made. Um, so, and I would be as equally as happy. Especially when it felt like this movie, like it just felt like everyone was going to gang up on this movie, and
Hmm.
um, and I was just worried about that. Although it looks like it got an A- from Cinema Score, so
Wow,
but
that's actually kind of
yeah,
shocking
that is shocking.
in a good
Because like
way.
it's hard to actually astroturf like Cinema Score stuff, like
Hmm.
so. Uh,
Yeah. I guess the ultimate last thing I want to say about this movie um, is that I think on one hand it's a little ahead of the time with the sincerity. It's also a little ahead of the time in that now I think studios have to understand, unless you're like some Barbenheimer like fucking specific lightning strike moment, movies are not gonna make their budgets back opening weekend anymore.
yeah,
Like maybe they will again, but not for a while, and definitely not with what's happening in the world. And if you want to give some time to make money, it's not gonna hurt.
mm,
Elemental is Pixar's biggest success
yeah.
now
Elemental,
in like 5 years.
it like quietly released it, and everyone's like, "Well,
Hmm.
it's dead on arrival," and it's like almost a 500 million. So
Yeah, so give stuff time. I know that's not how capitalism works and how these fucking tech bros have convinced people it works, but it's it could be a way for
but wait a
studios and
minute,
pictures
AI is
and
just going to generate everything from now on. That's what they're saying.
what if I got a gun
The AI
and
chatbots I've used can't remember my fucking name after 2 minutes, but they're gonna replace the entire industry. Uh,
no, there was someone was like posting their conversations with the chatbot, which I will never use. I don't give a shit about any of this stuff, obviously, and I hope I made that clear. But someone was like, "Who shot Oppenheimer?" And the AI thing was like, "Oh, no one shot Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer died." And it was like, "No, idiot, who shot the movie?" And it's just like that was really funny,
mm,
but it does give me a sense of calmness. Where I'm like, oh yeah, like the intricacies of human like slang
yeah, that's,
essentially it will still like surpass whatever a computer can like regurgitate at me.
my friend Shannon recently posted that she typed her name into a chatbot to be like, "Who is blah blah blah?" Because she has a somewhat online presence, and
Hmm.
the chatbot couldn't have been more wrong, like, in its response.
Amazing.
So, I think I've told this. I started using a chatbot because I wanted to get a feel for how these things worked, and it's like, hey, do you want to play a game? And I'm like, sure. And it couldn't really get more complicated games, and so I was like, let's do rock paper scissors, which you can't really play with a chatbot.
Yeah.
And so at first I was just like, well, let's see if it lets me win, and it just did. And then I was like, okay, and then now I'm gonna let it win, and I kept letting it win, and it kept being like, dang, you win again. And I'm like, no, you idiot. Like, I'm just like, wow, it's ridiculous. Felt a little. I'm surprised you didn't bring up AI more. It felt kind of relevant for this discussion.
I guess so. I mean, maybe this is the note.
I also did bring
up
VTubers once, and they are very relevant in my opinion.
That's okay.
Talking about the anime AIs.
No, that's all right. But for the AI thing, like, because the science fiction, science fantasy version of artificial intelligence is an actual intelligence. How it operates in the real world is we just do not have the technology to make it sentient.
Yeah.
Right? Like, look, maybe someone smarter than me can explain to me how that's going to be possible one day. Maybe even in our lifetimes. It's not a real intelligence. It's just stuff it's stolen. It's a plagiarism machine that regurgitates stuff back at us and follows command codes like a normal computer does. So yeah, that was Alita Battle Angel, directed by Robert Rodriguez and not James Cameron. I think I almost said directed by James Cameron at the beginning, and I'm glad I didn't. But yeah, this movie clearly is. It's got a special place in my heart. At least it is one of the quintessential failed blockbusters in that it is so successful that it doesn't even really count as a failure anymore. I'm glad we talked about it. I'm glad I was worried there wasn't going to be that much talk about it because I like it so much. I'd be like, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, there's always that. There's always that problem of like a movie you really like. Sometimes you're just like, yeah, it's just cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the next two movies won't have that problem.
I was about to say that next movie that I picked up on the random roulette right now may actually have that problem for me. It's our first Martin Scorsese movie, Hugo.
Yeah, I actually think I can find a lot to say about Hugo.
There's a lot to talk about around the movie as well, so I'm not super worried. But it is a Martin Scorsese movie, so I'm going to be like, yeah, wasn't that awesome? Wasn't that great? Doesn't it make you love movies and also life? Not every Scorsese movie makes me feel that. I want to reiterate that. I have seen The Irishman, but it's I think it'll be a good time.
Yeah. We're winding down, although we will have 2 bonus episodes. So
yes.
At least that's how it's looking.
And
right
those
now,
movies are going to be revealed eventually.
Yes.
So, you thought I was going to tell you now.
Can make some guesses. We can make some educated guesses on that one.
Yeah, well, there's one that I will say did not get voted in. We wanted to cover everyone's bases that voted for the movies. The ones that won the votes, we had to talk about. And I don't regret talking about any of them. I think at first we were a little hesitant, like, oh shit, were there too many good movies?
Yeah.
So we might add in a stinker. We'll see. It might be a good one. We haven't completely settled.
We have not totally decided yet.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. We thankfully, the worry was we were going to get movies that there just wasn't a lot to talk about, and I think we've done enough this time that even if the next 2 maybe don't pan out as well, we've done enough good stuff for this season.
Yeah.
So, yep. So
yes.
we'll have to wait and see.
So if those next 2 episodes are half an hour long, well, you just got like a 4-hour episode on Alita, and you got a 3-hour episode on Mimic. So
yeah. Movies that totally do not deserve that amount. I don't know. Alita's there's a lot to talk about. Maybe less so.
Yeah. No, you had stuff for Mimic, and I was like, yeah.
And you were there too.
I was also there.
I actually had that in my notes at one point where I was like, I was writing down all the stuff Alita was doing, and then I was like, and Hugo is there too.
Yeah, yeah. There's a little bit of that. I was sort of the Hugo of that episode. Only I didn't die horribly. I was just like, I kind of want more Guillermo del Toro movies.
yet, Diego. We'll see how this all pans out.
Yeah, we'll see. The last movie, we'll see. I think we both agree on that one, so it's not like going to be a surprise when we announce it and we're going to talk about it, but we'll see. All right, Matt, thanks for joining me. This is a pleasure as always. Where can the people find you online?
I'm at Emperor OTN at basically every website right now. I'm not really on Twitter anymore, although I am, but I'm trying not to be.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everyone's like, "Yeah, not really there." It's like we are. It's fine. We can say that. It's not going to be around forever. So.
Although on Twitter, I'm still Emperor OTN1 because of that dumb website. But, so if you do want to follow me, but like, it feels like that site's days are numbered. So maybe if you got Blue Sky, start migrating over to Blue Sky. And, I'm going to try to post other places in the future.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to post like my pictures on Blue Sky and Instagram, and that'll be my little hubs. Mm-hmm. Also, there's Discord now. I'm adding it to the descriptions of these episodes, so you can go join it, or I'll add a link and refresh it. I don't really know how Discord fully works yet, but
no, I don't either. But welcome, ALITA Army, if you show up.
Oh yeah, welcome.
Welcome.
Please
welcome,
be
communists.
chill. It's not you.
Nothing happens on the Discord right now. So.
No. The of course, Discord's kind of just in a slumber. We're hibernating for the winter. We're doing the reverse of normal human hibernations or animal hibernations. Humans don't hibernate.
I wish I slept all summer and just woke up during the winter.
I kind of wish the same too, because it's fucking hot still. We just had a hurricane for the first time in LA history, and it's still hot. The fuck is that?
Weird at all. But thankfully it's a little cooler here today, so that's good.
Okay.
But
let's walk my dog before the sun's up.
Why does Discord tell me what games people are playing?
I don't know. How does it also tell them? Because I don't have Discord connected to anything.
Yeah.
Although I don't want to be bothered very often, so I have myself as invisible. But
yeah, no, I'm invisible 24/7 as well.
Yeah.
So
leave me alone. No, it's fine. You can come talk to me.
You can come talk, but also don't expect a response because I don't know how it works.
Yeah, as I've gotten older, I've become a significantly worse texter. That translates to basically every social media thing. So
yeah, I've never really been good at texting. Twitter was oddly the only site I was good at because I could just basically put out anything into the void and not care.
Yeah, like Larry Bud Melman. Take it away, Larry.
If only he could have lived to see. They would have done a bit where they put him in like a fucking mecha suit or something. Wheeled him out there. A hearty and booming hello to my trembling and ant-like followers. But
Lariska.
Only Letterman could have seen Battle Angel.
You're telling me she's a young robot girl?
Yeah. There's that great last few years of Letterman where he clearly stopped giving a shit and would just tell people he didn't like what they were promoting.
Was it him? Oh, never mind. I was fucking misremembering him and who's the Jeopardy guy?
Oh, which one?
Fuck.
This is thrilling content.
I know. It's I don't remember.
Ken Jennings or Alex Trebek?
Trebek.
Okay.
Because sometimes I don't know if you noticed, like go back and listen to them talk. They kind of have the same like cadence of voice sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. Like very like not snarky, but just like matter of fact when they don't give a shit. And I just remember because I imagine Letterman doing this too, where like someone had mentioned like they're like they listen to video game music, they compose video game music or whatever because that's kind of like their online circles, just their immediate friends.
Mm-hmm.
And then Trebek was like, also known as losers.
Yeah, there was that last era of Trebek where he would just like fucking shut people down.
Yeah, and I think that's why my brain like compressed them into the same individual because I could see Letterman being like, oh, also known as losers.
Mm.
Anyways, none of that's ALITA Battle Angel. Go watch it.
It would have been a good Jeopardy contestant. She would just drop kick Trebek.
No, I will not stand by in the presence of evil.
Yes.
Drop kick Trebek. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. If you didn't like this episode, like and subscribe anyways, because you might find something you do like. Goodbye. We have been professionally unprofessional.